So as far as Sony, an all-around camera, I don't think there's one better.
Yep. That's what I was talking. My friend is like, or the one that I brought to the film class. He's like a really like religious Sony shooter,
Mm-hmm.
and he's waiting for the A7 IV. He thinks the A7 IV is going to be like the.
See, the problem with like having an all-around camera like the A7 III is like you can do so much more with photo as far as like things for sponsors, for banners and stuff, because you have the high megapixel. But once you get that high megapixel, when it comes to video, you become more ISO sensitive. So it's like which one. So
Well, we're live, folks.
I wasn't talking. That's cool. Appreciate it.
What?
Nothing. Go ahead.
I just want to tell people that we're live so that they knew.
We are live.
And we'll get into the podcast here in a couple minutes. Chris and Clay were having a spirited discussion about Sony versus Canon.
Well, I kind of have to because I'm the only Sony guy here
You are.
in the office. So when someone's here on my side, a little bit. I mean, he may not love Sony, but I mean, there's things I don't love about Sony. But when there's one in the office, I gotta take advantage of it.
Yep.
True.
It's just so, and the other thing is too. Whenever I like talk to people who want to get into photography and videography, like I want so bad to like point them to Canon because that's what I started off on. But the barrier to entry for the price in Sony is so much lower.
Well, the thing is, like, I think you can spend a little bit more money in Sony and get a better camera that will last longer as far as your abilities go,
Mm-hmm.
because you can get a less professional mirrorless, which I think mirrorless for people starting out is way better because you can see your exposure. Also, Sigma and Tamron have access to the E-mount from Sony.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, like, I have two lenses I have a 16 millimeter 1.4 and a 50 millimeter 1.4, and both of those didn't cost me any more than $800 combined.
Right.
So they're like $325 or $350 a lens.
Yep.
Someone talking about me?
Guess who's on here to give us crap?
Mike Hearn or Caleb?
It's Caleb.
Yeah.
And he says, "Don't get used to my chair, Clay."
Well, anyway, I don't know who Clay is because apparently the new guy in the office, his name is Radio Shack.
It is Radio Shack. You're right.
So
We did an Instagram poll, which is legally binding, and the people chose. Now, it was not a large margin. It was 60-40, but the people chose Radio Shack over Clayblade. And so until we come up with a different one, that shall be the one that sticks. However, your Bo's name is still Clayblade. So Radio Shack shoots the Clayblade.
in a deadly fashion, if I may add.
You may add.
By the way,
just out here working while y'all play.
Well, by the way, just
that's what I've been doing today, just playing around.
for those of you
playing
on the
around.
live
Just
stream,
slaving over footage for hours.
we have an electrician here working today. So if you hear banging, cursing, saws, drills, or someone rapidly crosses the frame of the live stream, that would be our electrician that is here finishing the electrical in the upstairs. So, Caleb, we went ahead and made some executive decisions and overrid some of your decisions, Ryer and I did. Mainly me, because Ryer had no idea what the electrician was talking about. But I went ahead and made some executive decisions on your behalf. So
It was really it was a humbling experience. So I did construction for like 8 months. But I was an industrial caulking technician. Notice how precisely
you said that.
I said that word. And we always were doing work before the electricians were even in, and so I never learned or heard any of the jargon for the electrical work, so I don't know names for things. And so they were talking about all this stuff, and I was like, okay, so is that the outlet? Is that where you plug the things into? Is that a switch? Like, I need those kind of terms. And I was like, that must be what it feels like when I get a little too excited
About planes?
Well, not so much planes, but definitely maybe planes, but definitely like editing or photography stuff. and you just start spouting all these terms that you take for granted because you use them every day, and most of the people in your field know them. And then you talk to somebody who maybe isn't in that space every day, and they're like, you've said a lot of words, and none of them mean anything to me. Yeah. So I was on the other side of that this time. So that was fun. Basically, Clay did all the translation. So you can add that to your resume.
Electrical translationer?
Translator?
Translationer.
Translationer?
I like that better.
Just like, what's the word that everybody gives me crap for? Certification.
Certification.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah. It's okay.
Just can't have it both ways. You can.
Can't have your cake and eat it too.
So shall we start, considering there's 4 people watching, one of them's our boss, and the other 3 are sitting in this room?
Is that true?
Yeah, I think so.
Uh-oh.
Oh, gosh.
You cheated on your diet? You're on a diet?
Yeah, I got to get rid of my Copeland 15.
Oh.
Instead of the freshman 15, it's the Copeland 15.
Oh, we were supposed to stop at 15? Look at me. I'm an overachiever, folks. I think oh
wow.
I think I got a little more than 15. But you know what? I can't blame, probably after 15, I can't blame Caleb for that anymore. It's just my lack of good habits.
Your lack of good habits.
Yeah. He is fitting in better and better at the office.
I think
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I'm going to fit in way better once I straight razor my head. You didn't see that. I sent it to them in the group message. I'll have to show you.
It's a horrific picture that I wish I never saw. This is what I want y'all to imagine. I won't show it unless if Clay is like, hey, we want everybody to see this. If I was Clay, I would never show anybody this picture, ever. But that's on him. He can do what he wants. I want you guys to imagine the stereotypical profile picture of a 45-year-old,
Dad. This is accurate.
Who is on Facebook and comments and argues on all of the political posts. That's
exactly what I looked like.
Mm-hmm, exactly. He had the sunglasses and everything.
Yeah, not my proudest moment, but it's coming soon.
It's a
Snapchat filter.
Was it? Okay. I was like, I don't know where he got that from.
I'm scared. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm going bald very quickly. I'm only 24. Some point, I'm going to have to shave my head because I will not be rocking the reverse mohawk.
His hair is receding faster than the French in World War II.
Yes. And I refuse to rock the reverse mohawk.
Won't do it?
So I'm going to have to straight razor my head at some point, and I'm scared I'm going to have an ugly, bumpy head.
That just sounds brutal.
That's not even something I've ever considered in my life.
Like
the texture of my head was never...
No, by bumpy, I mean like get really bad razor burn is what I'm scared I'm going to get.
Well, don't you have to use like some oil or something?
Well, yeah, but I use shaving cream when I shave my face, and I still get razor burn a little bit.
Quit shaving your face. That's what I did. That's why I have this.
Well,
the whole reason my beard is like this is because when I used to shave, I would get horrific razor burn, and nothing that I did stopped it. And so when I wasn't like forced to shave every day, I stopped, and I haven't shaved since. He asked me if he could borrow a razor. And
Did I?
Yeah. Didn't you? We're at Walmart. You're like, oh, I could use your shaving cream. He's like, oh, I could use your shaving cream. I was like, oh, I don't have that. Don't use that.
What is this you speak of?
Yeah, shaving cream.
Brought to you by Manscaped.
I'd be a horrible person to represent their brand. Do they actually? Here's the real question: do they have men represent their brand?
No.
Manscaped?
Yes. I don't think I've seen a man representing their brand. You have?
Yeah.
Who?
You know the guy on TikTok, or I see him on Instagram, the Nick Cass guy, or whatever. He does the filter that makes his face look all big, and he talks Italian. You know who I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, he's a influencer, which we'll get into in today's podcast.
I see.
For Manscaped. That's on my notes for today to talk about.
Influencers?
Quote influencers.
Wait, you made notes?
Yeah, dog.
Where? Did you share them with anybody? No?
No.
You didn't share the notes?
That'd be a hard no.
All right. Well, so you're going to host the podcast then?
I don't even know what our actual topic is. I just know
social
we're talking
media.
about just social media.
Yeah. It's just a loose topic because we've been doing a lot of talking about social media.
A ton.
And Chris has a lot more experience doing this and a lot of insight, and I kind of want to do this just to ask him questions, and I figured that it would be useful for you guys out there. I know there's a lot of people who are out there developing their own brands, and so I was like, hey, we should do this. Maybe it'll help some people.
Caleb is honest about saying he sucks at social media, and I too suck at social media, so this will be good.
I'm mediocre. I feel like, in my opinion, I'm mediocre is how I would rate myself. But I feel like this is good conversation to record on the podcast. So I think that we should jump right into it. What do you say?
So I get to open the podcast because I have the notes?
If you open the podcast, you must lead it.
It's all you, bud.
I'm perfectly comfortable just
all you
winging it.
That's all you.
Yeah?
Go ahead.
Can you share the notes then?
But it's about the notes are about my Instagram.
About your Instagram?
Yeah.
What about your
relative notes about my Instagram that might relate to the topics we talk about?
So is this the live stream right now? Is this
Yes.
is what we're talking about right now actually going to go on like the Spotify version of this podcast?
No.
Okay, it doesn't happen till we
Yeah.
record.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, gotcha.
So that's why we're fighting right now.
Getting it out of the way.
Because he made notes.
Caleb,
and he's being all protective of
Caleb,
them.
he's picking on me.
I've never seen
I don't have them in a note where I can share them. They're in a personal note.
So are we talking about like
we've done a lot of planning for this.
Well, so the way that I see it, there are basically 2 or 3 different schools of thought when it comes to this. We can talk about social media best practices.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as like what we respectively are doing or what the Copeland Creative Company is doing on social media. Or we could talk about different topics within the social media realm, like influencers and our opinions on those types of things, because I feel like some of us
That's going to get heated.
have
Different opinions.
various opinions.
I think we'll probably broach a lot of these, won't we? What's the third one?
I can't. I had something brewing in the back of my mind.
I say we just roll into it, and wherever it goes, it goes.
That's what I was going to plan on doing.
What was it that led us to wanting to do this as our topic?
Me thinking about it.
Okay.
And just.
Oh no, I was gonna have you. I mentioned it this morning, having you talk about all the apps and stuff that you used for social media.
Oh yeah.
So that can be like best practices or the creative side of it.
Yeah.
We could do creative side of it, strategic side of it, and then like, I don't know.
Let's just roll into it and see where it goes.
Current state of the union.
Current state of the union. I like it.
Okay.
I always mess this part up, guys. Every time.
It's the big green record button.
Every time I do this, I mess it up.
It's the red one, then the yellow one.
Oh.
You want me to do it?
What is SP and OP? Open. What to SP? Sponsor?
S is Spy Point.
RTP SP?
Oh. Start podcast.
Open.
I know it's red then yellow.
Caleb, help us out here.
If we mess this up, the nice thing is I get to take this and fix my mistake. The bad thing is all of you will know that I've done that.
You want me to do it?
No. We're
Okay.
gonna do it.
Okay.
I don't let fear run my life.
Okay.
That's why I will
gotta
go
lower,
skydiving.
gotta lower
unlike
our
you.
levels.
Yeah, Gosh, dang it. The Redneck Tech Podcast is brought to you by Diamondback Covers, the absolute best cover you could ever spend your money on. If you need an insurance policy for all the expensive gear on the back of your truck, then you need a Diamondback cover. Make the bed of your truck a vault with Diamondback.
Right here. Yeah. You want it? Yeah.
Well, howdy, folks. Welcome to the Redneck Tech Podcast. You may notice I'm not Caleb. I am actually Ryer, a.k.a. Red Velvet. Caleb is on a mountain lion hunt with Brock with Really White TV, and it is me, Clay, and Chris in the office today. And we thought that we'd go ahead and do a podcast. We are streaming live on YouTube. Caleb is watching. He's giving us a steady stream of crap. But that's okay. We're going to keep going, and we're not going to let his negative words discourage us. And we're going to have a good time. The general topic today is going to be social media. So we last week we did a podcast with you, Chris?
Yes, sir.
So last week we did a podcast with Chris, and he's still here, and he is still helping us out in the office. And he's been staying at my place, and we've been having a lot of conversations about social media, all kinds of topics about social media. It's something that I'm very interested in. It's something that I spend a decent amount of time doing. Social media, I can say for myself, is something that I'm on a lot of the time. And lately I've been really trying to work on leveraging that effectively for the Redneck Tech podcast page, for the Copeland Creative page, and also for a podcast page that we run, the Playing the Game podcast, which is Brock's podcast. And so I have I know enough about social media and social media strategy to be dangerous. I think I do a maybe slightly above average job on the social media side of things, but I'm certainly no expert, and I think Chris has a lot more experience in that realm than me, especially on the technical and brand side of things. So I guess the first thing I might have Chris talk about is just kind of some of the work that you've done on the social media side of things, just in general, some of your experience.
Yeah. So social media, it's such a, I don't know, it's such a, in my opinion, an overused term. It's a loaded word, or a loaded phrase that has so many different things packed into it. Because when we talk about social media, the common things are like Instagram and Facebook. You also throw in TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, if you want to get technical, could be considered a social media platform, Twitter. And really all of what all of these serve is as a communication platform through which one person communicates with another. And so my experience in using social media has primarily, before I ever started learning about the organic side of it and the creative side of it, it was purely from a business sense. Before I dove into the outdoor world, the majority of my experience with social media was running it for businesses, like on the advertising side. So paid media, sponsored posts and things of that nature, lead generation and that kind of thing. But what it led to was a better understanding of how people use the apps and how to catch their attention, and how you can kind of hack attention, if you will, to begin to, I don't want to say build an audience, because in a lot of cases that may be your goal, but at the end of the day, how to use these communication platforms to reach your desired outcome. Because like I said, your desired outcome may not necessarily be just to grow a big following, but it may be to connect with a certain individual or a specific niche of individuals, or whatever the case is. So what I've been in the process of doing over the last year and a half or 2 years is converting my knowledge as far as the paid media side of it to the organic side of it, and learning how to take advantage of these communication platforms to get the attention of the end user. So
what when you say you're transitioning or taking your knowledge from one to the other, are you transitioning to a more organic approach, or are you just taking some of the things that you learned from, and this is what I gathered from our conversation, a more strategic and measured approach on the paid side of things, and trying to translate all of those statistics and numbers that you were running then to the organic side of things, or what are you talking about there?
Yeah, so knowing the field that I'm trying to get into, which is specifically the outdoor industry, the reason that it was such a big deal to me to learn the organic side of it was because the outdoor industry as a whole is based around primarily influencer marketing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, which a ton of outdoor companies run paid advertising. Like every outdoor company that has sponsorship deals with influencers also runs paid advertising. But an overarching amount of the ad dollars that are spent, or the marketing dollars that are spent in this industry, is spent on influencers, which
Right.
whether that's TV or whether that's social media, are basically using their influence to sell their impressions to a brand.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought process is, well, if I want to get into that, whether that's brokering deals between influencers and brands, or whether that's working specifically with brands to set them up with influencers that are going to be the best bang for their buck, I need to understand why they are getting the impressions that they're getting, and whether or not those impressions are worth as much as the impressions that they could be getting somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Because not every impression is equal. So
Sure. Have you found anything or formed any opinions on that front yet?
as far as
Influencer marketing, and whether the impressions from an influencer are better, the same, or worse than impressions on your own page or on a paid advertisement?
Yeah, so again, a lot of this, so much of this is speculation at
Sure.
this point, because I'm still constantly testing theories and doing research. But yeah, I think it depends, because in my opinion, the purpose of using, so this is how I've kind of set up in the businesses that I've done social media for so far, is that the things that you post on your own page are
Mhm.
specifically geared towards people who are already aware of your brand, because the only people, for the most part, on most of these social media platforms, except for maybe like TikTok or LinkedIn, the organic reach, which means the reach that you get from just posting a post, and then the likelihood of somebody who doesn't follow you seeing it, the organic reach has largely dropped off.
Mm-hmm.
So for the most part, if you post a post, the people who are going to engage with it are people who are already in your funnel, or already people who are engaged with your brand. So the type of content that you would put out on your own page versus the purpose of like partnering with an influencer would be to put your brand in front of somebody who's not already familiar with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're going to do a brand deal with, so for instance, Diamondback truck covers,
Mm-hmm.
the benefit of them doing like a sponsorship deal to sponsor this podcast would be somebody listening to this podcast doesn't already follow them.
Right.
And here's the intro. Oh, you know what? I need a cover for the bed of my truck.
Mm-hmm.
They trust you guys because they're already, that you guys have built that relationship with them. So you guys have built that relationship with your listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So that brand doesn't have to go through the process of also building that trust necessarily, because you guys have done it for them. So it's like two different purposes of like content production.
So really, it's a way to reach new audiences.
Largely,
is,
in my opinion.
is what you would kind of advise people to use influencers for.
And social proof,
Mm-hmm.
shows that people actually use it. So
Now, Clay, before we went live, you said that this topic might be a little incendiary, that there might be some
I
disagreements.
don't know what that means. I'm going to assume you are referring to the fact that it heats me up a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in our talks that we've had, Chris seems to be very, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like you have a negative view of influencers or using influencers on the marketing side of things, social media marketing wise. And it seems like you have a very strategic approach about it, a very measured approach to it. At least that's kind of the vibe I get from you. So, Clay, what is your opinion on using influencers for marketing?
I have zero problem using influencers.
Mm-hmm.
I think influencers are a big driver in the outdoor industry, and I'm talking strictly the outdoor industry.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for the amount of good that influencers are doing for the hunting industry, I also think they're doing the same amount of bad. Because in my opinion, and this is me personally, a influencer should almost be like a customer support representative. They should be there to answer questions, give feedback, give recommendations, answer questions from the outside public. But then they should also be a marketing team that promotes, that gives feedback on things that need to change or new products that could come. They hold a bunch of different hats.
Mm-hmm.
But my issue is I see a lot of influencing from people that shouldn't be influencing. And this is just me being honest. But like people that are an influencer just because they want to be an influencer, not because they're trying to help people.
Mm-hmm.
Like just the generic, the girl with her butt out, holding the product, never use the product, doesn't hunt. Her boyfriend's probably a photographer. All their photos are photo shoot photos.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't me knocking on girls because there's guys that are like this too. Hopefully not with their butt hanging out. But there's guy
Hopefully.
hey, just got these new trail cameras. I love them. They're the best ones on the market, and they're still in original packaging. You know, things like that. That's what bothers me because I'm going to try to throw myself under the bus. I've tried to be an influencer a few times for a brand to get some free stuff because we all like free stuff. And they always tell me that I don't have enough followers and I don't engage in enough conversation with my audience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if any of y'all have been to my Instagram page, but I have 774 followers as of this podcast. And a lot of that has to do with the social media algorithms and how I think they're kind of botched, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't hashtag because I think they're ugly and I think they make your posts ugly. And I know, like, we put ours in the comments and
Mhm.
things like that, so you can't see them on the post. But I think, like, Instagram as a whole could do a better way of some type of hashtag system that is a bit more fluid. But, like, I don't hashtag. I don't post to get followers. I post
Right.
stuff that I would also want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think influencers, the bad influencers, kind of rub me the wrong way. Is they're not posting organic stuff. Not all of them. There are some amazing quote influencers out there, but I don't see them as an influencer. Like Stephen Drake, amazing photographer,
Mm-hmm.
does these little vlog things of like him going out and like his hunts or his photo trips. He's vlogging them, and I believe he's a Matthews influencer, and I know for a fact he's a Sitka influencer.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not making Sitka and Matthews posts. He's
Right.
just talking about what he uses, and that's
That's an interesting conversation. to
and
get
that's
into.
that's what bothers me. It's the I'm an influencer for this brand stuff that bothers me, not the hey, this was what I'm doing, this is what I'm using.
Right.
That doesn't bother me. It's the NASCAR quote type stuff.
You must hate working in the outdoor industry then.
And it does bother me. It's like it's the NASCAR stuff is what I call it. Like, oh, this Red Bull and Monster Energy drink racing suit helped me win today. Well, they didn't really do anything but like cover your body. Same thing, like if it wasn't for this brand of arrow and this brand of bow and this bow of broadhead, I would not have killed this deer. That's the stuff with influencers that bothers me.
How philosophical do you want to get with that conversation?
And you have more experience with that, obviously. But on the outside, that's the influencer
Yeah.
stuff that bothers me.
No, I got you.
Let's try a base level philosophical and see what happens.
Well, if you,
I'm a big fan of very deep level philosophical conversations, but also at some point in this podcast I do want to circle around and give some practical tips and answer some questions we got on the podcast. So I don't want to get too into the weeds with it, but
yeah.
I do want to hear some of the philosophical thoughts that you have.
Yeah. No, so I mean, I'm right there with you. One of the reasons that I kind of stopped watching a lot of outdoor industry because I was obsessed with it growing up. That's all my dad and I watched was like the Outdoor Channel and Sportsman's Channel. But after a while, myself, like many other people, really got tired of like the billboard-esque type advertising that was on it.
I am more likely, and this is so garbage of me to say, I am more likely to use a product the less it's thrown in my face than I am to use the products that are thrown in my face.
I think it's how it's thrown in your face.
Well, correct. Yes, it feels thrown in my face because that's how it's thrown in
Leaves
my
a bad
face.
taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And see, that's why I think that actually, that's why I believe that influencer marketing versus traditional advertising is actually has a potential higher ROI if it's done correctly.
ROI is return on investment. By
Correct. Because if it's done wrong, of course, it looks like it looks like a sorority girl doing a multi-level marketing scheme, and it's just bad taste.
Yeah.
But like if it's done right, it's like what you said. You know, you can't deny the fact that you get on Instagram and you go through. Like, there's a reason that 9 out of the 10 outdoor people that you land on Instagram are wearing, not people in the outdoor industry, but people who are outdoorsmen are wearing Sitka. There's no argument as to why. It's because Sitka has done a phenomenal job branding themselves online and putting their gear in the hands of people who are actually doing the work.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Matthews is another one. Us three talk about it all the time. If all the companies in the outdoor space used their marketing dollars like Matthews and Sitka did, industry would be completely different.
Right.
I'm not as familiar. Can you elaborate a little bit on
Matthews is exactly like Sitka, except it's a bow and not camouflage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
We all three of us, and speaking for them three, hopefully I'm correct, would say they are the top 2, if not the best, content people in
Matthews and Sitka.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not even just it goes past the whole how they use influencers and things of that nature, but I mean for us, I think a lot of it has to do with their willingness to fund productions with a big budget and not necessarily have to have 15, 20, 25 sponsors on a video, and they're usually, it seems like, perfectly happy to basically take the role of, we're funding the project, our name will be on it that way. They'll throw a logo in the front or the back or something like that. It's something really cool, something very artsy. It's highly produced, and then boom,
it's like
that's it.
Like the Red Bull model,
right?
Kind of.
Yeah. The Red Bull model, the Yeti model.
They become like a production entity themselves, putting out content.
Exactly. And I think I find myself being a bit critical on the influencer stuff, because doing what we do for a living, I can look at something and be like, oh, that's a sick shot, but it was done in a photo shoot, not in the field. And I think that's a lot of this influencer stuff is done on photo shoots and not actually being used as the product should be used. And I think some of that's what puts a bad taste in my mouth as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also look at, so this is a really interesting thing. So I myself really enjoy watching well-produced pieces of outdoor content because I'm a creator myself. You're the same way.
Right.
Something that's really interesting to me is, though, like, but if I want to watch hunting content, like if I want to get like, if I want to scratch that whitetail itch, I'm watching the Hunting Public 9 times out of 10. And they're shooting on like Canon XA20s and like throwing it in Premiere and pumping it out. And it's not by any means high production value, but the content is there. And it was really interesting to me because I'm like, I wonder how, like, obviously some other people got to feel this way. We have Avery over to Ryer's house the other night, and he goes to put he wants to watch turkey hunting on YouTube.
Pinhoti Project.
What was it?
The Pinhoti Project.
Yeah.
A lot of guys will know that. For sure.
And I to be fair, I'd never heard of it, but immediately I understood why. Is because like guys like you and me, and I assume Clay to a degree, like really enjoy watching the production aspect of it. But for dudes who are in it for the hunt because they really enjoy the hunting, which by the way, people in the outdoor industry, that's who our audience is. I know it's wild, right? Our audience isn't other creators. For the people who like are into hunting and watch it for that reason, it's not so much about like they could come to a point where the stylized shoots and the high production quality in the f1.8 aperture could actually maybe do some harm.
Yeah.
And I watch 2 types of content. I watch the higher end well produced, cinematic, fancy, whatever you want to call it, stuff. And then I watch the dude in his garage filming on a GoPro with no microphone, educational content.
Mm-hmm.
I will watch something. I'll sit there and watch a 45-minute PowerPoint presentation on YouTube if I'm going to learn what I looked up to learn. And that's where I think like the Pinhoti Project and the Hunting Public have done well, is because yes, they're hunting and they're killing animals. They kill very large animals for doing it on public land, but it's more about the education for them. And that's where I think like Caleb talks about it all the time. He hates the fact that his brother loves the hunting public. But his brother Josh loves the hunting public because he says it all the time. He learns stuff when he goes on there. And I think that's where you can, your stuff doesn't have to be Hollywood quality if it's educational.
And there's a high amount of relatability.
Yes.
It just has to provide value, and that's the whole thing. And if you're, and I won't go too far off into this because this rabbit trail could go for miles and miles. But if you have any experience listening to like Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, he's a very talented businessman and marketer.
That's perfect. I was going to ask you about him.
And but his thing, and so it's gotten to the point that when people say quality content, I literally like cringe just thinking about it, is because quality is so subjective to the person that it's created for.
Mm-hmm.
Because production quality doesn't necessarily mean relevance and value provided to the audience. Because trust me, I've seen some dudes who have fantastic, like really, really high quality gear, perfect lighting setup, technically correct shots, put together a video, and it is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Provides no value for one reason or another. And then likewise, I've seen, clips of like a hog hunt shot on a cell phone go viral on Facebook, like
Right.
overnight in these hunting groups. And it's because people, for, better or worse, like really dig the content. So quality is so subjective to the people that it's created for. So that's why understanding who your audience is and creating content, not necessarily for what you like, but for what your audience will get value from, is the most important thing when it comes to the job we do, in my opinion.
So to continue down the Gary V side of things, I think one of the biggest struggles or one of the biggest questions that I am always faced with as somebody running social medias is like, what do I post? How often do I post? How much should I post? I'm sure anybody who's listened to this podcast for any period of time knows that I, as an individual, am more detailed, and I get off into the weeds with trying to make sure that everything is perfect before I'll post or before I do anything. And so I think that I've found more and more in today's climate, people want content now, and they want a lot of it, and you can't be like that. And I think Gary V is a really big proponent of that. So
Proponent of what? I don't know who Gary Vee is.
He's like I guess you could call him a social media strategist, guru kind of guy. He's very outspoken on trying to help people win basically on social media or marketing or whatever.
He runs a marketing agency, like a Madison Avenue marketing agency, who runs the marketing for like Fortune 500 companies, brands you would recognize, Budweiser, Pepsi, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a really big personal brand following for also helping, I guess, lead and guide young entrepreneurs or old entrepreneurs alike into a better understanding of like entrepreneurship and marketing and customer attention and things of that nature.
Okay.
So what's your general approach to, I guess, some of the more quantifiable things on social media, like how much to post, what to post, how often to post, what time to post? Like what is your general approach to that? I mean, a lot of those things do depend on your particular audience. and kind of your particular page, things like posting times and whatnot. But do you have a general kind of strategy when you go into that sort of thing?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. In my opinion, it totally depends on what your end goal is, and where your strengths lie as well. Um, for some people, I know people that putting out content comes so naturally to them that putting out 5 or 6 pieces of content a day on a single platform is nothing. So when you talk about, like, you hear people like Gary Vee talk about, like, you need to be putting out 15 to 20 pieces of content a day. Well, for some people that's not hard because they're perfectly fine with, like, throwing up, because their specific niche and brand allows it. They're perfectly fine with throwing up like cell phone pictures and then putting out a tweet and screenshotting the tweet and putting it in their Instagram feed and then sharing that on Facebook and Instagram stories and then cross-posting and doing all these things. And then when somebody likes 6 of their posts, they'll screenshot it and do a shout out for them in their stories, and it just builds up and builds up. And some people just like thrive on it and they can build that massive amount of content. But there's some people who just suffocate under it and they end up spending so much time and energy thinking about it that they don't actually really get anything impactful done. So I think, one, it kind of depends on where your strengths are, because I think that if you are killing yourself just trying to put out content, you're better off starting off small and putting out something consistently that you enjoy putting out. And then later, if you find yourself in a spot where you feel like you can up the amount, then that's great. But you should start off where you're comfortable putting out what you want to put out. So that's one side of it. And then the other side of it, I'd say too, is like kind of what the purpose of your channel is, or your platform. Because if you're an influencer who you make your living by impressions, then it's probably best to develop some kind of system where you're constantly putting out content. Otherwise, you're not going to have the impressions to sell, your sponsorship.
Right.
So when I look at influencers that I've done some work for that are able to put out, like I said, 15 pieces of content a day across platforms, all of a sudden their value to sponsors goes up dramatically because they're, somebody who's putting out, you put out two posts a day versus 1 post a day, all of a sudden your impressions double. The visits to your page double. So the amount of people who are going to see Sitka field staff in their bio doubles. You know what I mean?
Right.
So all of a sudden that's more value to a sponsor. Take the other side of that, and maybe you're Clay. Let's say hypothetically Clay with 700 and something followers on Instagram. But let's say Clay's hopes and dreams were to be a freelance videographer. Well, he doesn't necessarily need to amass a massive audience. It's cool if he can, and there are definitely dudes who I follow on Instagram who are creators who have built big audiences. But the important thing is putting out content that's going to appeal to the people who need to see that. So you don't necessarily need to amass a giant audience. You need to put out a number of content and the type of content that when Caleb Copeland lands on your profile, he likes what he sees.
Yeah, it's better to have 774 followers and have 500 true engagements versus having 300,000 followers and only having 1,000 true engagements.
And I think also the important thing,
in my opinion,
besides
I may be
just
wrong.
the metrics there, is one, knowing your end goal. Like every other thing that we ever talk about is know the goal, know where you're going to put this, know what you're trying to do, know what you're trying to say, and like making sure that the content is relevant and useful to that end goal.
Yeah.
Like if you were trying to get Caleb Copeland to land on your page and be like, oh, I want that guy to work for Copeland Creative, you putting out 4 million cell phone pictures isn't going to do it.
No.
What's going to do it is having good quality pictures, well-produced videos, and videos specifically
once a week.
And I think that theory points back to your page because you almost double the amount of followers I have, and I think you have a third of the posts that I have. I think we looked a couple weeks ago, and you hadn't posted since like September.
Yeah, so
and a lot of that I will, on your behalf, you run the Cope Creative and the Redneck Tech social media. And
oh, I'm sorry guys. I didn't mean to. Go ahead.
And a lot of the things you would see on your page, you already see on the Cope Creative and the Rednet Tech page.
Mm-hmm.
And just like me now, not before I worked here, but me now, whatever I would post on my page or what you would post on your page that was your photo is going to go on Rednet Tech or Cope Creative. So now it's even harder for you to post things, I would assume, because you're running two more important pages that require more content for those two pages.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. Like I said before, I've listened to Gary Vee and tried to kind of glean strategy from him for a little while, before we had like talked about it. So, his huge thing is like, don't overthink it, right?
Yep.
Because
Because
and I'm 100% the poster child of overthinking and perfectionism on any platform, but especially social media. I'm the type of person who will not post something if I don't feel like it's perfect, or if I don't have something like perfect to say about it. I don't have the perfect caption. It's not like timely or relevant. And like that literally paralyzed me for months. I didn't put out anything. And I would do stories. And even the stories sometimes, like if I don't feel like the story will be cool or that it will get, quote unquote engagement, I would not do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I start listening to Gary Vee and really trying to analyze why it is that I'm using social media for me personally, right? And for me, my goal on social media is I just want to show people cool things that I took. And so I kind of had to come to this realization that if I think it's cool, I should just put it on my social media. Who cares if I have anything interesting necessarily to say about it? Now, do I still, have to rein in my own tendencies and have to continually fight kind of that urge to want to be a perfectionist about it? Yes.
Yeah.
But like definitely recently I've tried to be a lot better about just trying to put out things that, one, I think are cool, like especially my feed. My feed I try to make just photos and stuff that I feel is cool and I want to share with people. And then the stories are kind of like a look into what I get to do every day. And it's kind of the place where I'm able to mess around and have some jokes, or I like to share those inspirational things to kind of show other people's work off and to show some things that I think are cool. And it's really made it, that kind of switch has made a big difference to me.
It's cool too because that gives people like an insight into your personality that they may not otherwise know. It like kind of builds that rapport, if you will. Because I even before coming up here, I mean, we've before I got here this last week, like I feel like we've been friends for a lot longer than we have, just because of this last week. But really, prior to like last Monday, we had met each other twice,
right,
and talked on Instagram like once. But I feel like I had a better idea of like what to expect and like who you were because of. You weren't just putting out a picture on Instagram, but you were like constantly communicating through stories, which by the way is a fantastic feature on social media for communicating those smaller like micro details.
Yeah.
It's harder to convey in a post.
Well, I think stories now, given how much content people want and the fact that they want that relatability, right? People really connect from what I've seen, people really connect with stories. Because it's almost like the stories break a little bit of that wall that is up on a feed, right? When you scroll through something, it's super easy to like that. How many times do I comment on a post per day? Very, very, very rarely. Now, how many times will I reply to somebody's story? A lot more. Because it feels like you have access to that person as an individual through the stories. Right. And I think the same thing is with a brand. I think it breaks down and a little bit of that wall and makes people feel like they're more familiar and it's more casual. Go ahead.
Okay. It wasn't really So I want to make sure that we land on this before we go on to the next topic. But
Sure.
Caleb posted in the chat
Oh yeah.
a fantastic example, which is who you all know and love, Black Rifle Coffee Company. He said Black Rifle was at one point putting out over 30 pieces of content a day across all their platforms. And if I might add, contextual content as well. Like they weren't just throwing stuff up. I remember when I found Black Rifle Coffee Company, I was like so taken back by the amount of content that they put out and the types of content they were putting out.
Yeah.
And I'm not a veteran. I was never in the military, but I had some close friends who were. And the type of humor that I would see on their videos was like, if you spent much time around military guys, like I think Mike Hearn, whenever I think, like just this kind of maybe borderline raunchy, like, or definitely raunchy, like kind of crazy sense of humor. And I would see that in their videos, and I'm like, man, for the type of people that they're like, I guess, trying to associate with, like, this is very, very on point with what it needs to be. And they were putting out content, and I think maybe this was even before they were really getting into hunting content. I'm not sure because that come a little bit later on, but they were even doing like the what was it? It was like you may be a veteran if, and they were doing videos like that, and it was just like kind of back to what we were talking about earlier. They weren't high production value videos.
Right.
It wasn't like it wasn't like cinematic style videos. It honestly looked like them kind of running around with like a DSLR or like maybe even a cell phone camera and shooting these like goofy videos, but it was like perfect for who they're trying to get in front of.
Right.
And they've gone absolutely viral to the point that you don't even like screw the sponsorship. Everybody's putting Black Rifle on everything that they post anyways. Like if somebody goes to the store and buys Black Rifle coffee, they're putting 16 stories about it on Instagram.
Yeah.
Because they're just so loyal to the brand, because they've created that rapport with them by putting out. They've created awareness, but then after the awareness, they've created that rapport with them because of the amount and the types of content that they're putting out. And that is one of the perfect examples, in my opinion, of a brand that really did well with taking advantage of the absolute land grab of attention that has come with these modern communication platforms. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't let that one go by the wayside.
Yeah, I mean, I think Black Rifle is almost like the example of exactly what you want to do, all the things that you need to do. Like they didn't just put out content that was like, hey, we have coffee, right? They really narrowed down on, okay, who is it that we want to buy our coffee? Who can we appeal to? And how can we make them like us and also our coffee? Like Black Rifle makes excellent coffee.
Which is also a huge part of their success because it's actually a good product.
Yeah, so they have an excellent product, but I think that you can find a lot of excellent coffee if you really want to, right? I think that they've been able to narrow down and create an audience that doesn't just like their coffee. They like Black Rifle Coffee Company. They like the stickers. They like the people who are the face of the brand. They like the attitude of the brand. They feel connected and spoken to, and they feel represented by Black Rifle. And they feel proud and stoked to say that they are a patron of Black Rifle, which is, when you think about it, that's a huge deal for somebody to be so, to feel like they're so connected to your brand and so happy with your brand that they willingly and enthusiastically want to associate themselves with that brand, especially on like social media.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, think of like how many things we do a day. Like if I eat something, right? I'm not going to post like the brand of the thing that I'm eating most times.
Unless it's Casey's.
Right.
Oh
But another one.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit because it's me and I love Casey's breakfast pizza.
I can't tell you how many Instagram stories I've seen.
It's a
that both
thing now,
have
though, for sure.
Casey's breakfast pizza and duck hunting in the same
And
feed.
like the thing with Casey's,
It's like a thing.
the thing with Casey's was not brought on by Casey's.
No.
It was brought on by the people using Casey's.
Yeah.
Right.
or I guess consuming Casey's.
Yeah, I'm,
But
I'm pretty
again-
sure Casey's like at no point was like, you know what we need to do?
Get into the hunting market.
Yeah,
But regardless of
and they still aren't. They're not like a.
no,
I don't. And
but regardless.
but if you're listening to this, Casey's, if you're looking to break into the hunting market and you would like somebody to represent your product, please hit me up.
we could do a podcast of just eating Casey's pizza the whole time. Just a video of just us eating Casey's pizza.
Just nothing but audio of y'all smacking your gums.
I had
So-
it Crocs and socks, 11 out of 10. You know what it is. You know what it is, Jake.
Oh yeah. But so to that point though, completely regardless of the intent of the company, that's like a perfect example of the wildfire that can happen whenever somebody's attention is caught on the communication platforms, and it's an absolute. It blows my mind how quickly things can take off.
Or like the ocean spray
Yeah.
guy from TikTok.
Or do either y'all follow T-Bone
Who?
from Bone Collector?
I don't.
I was thinking Mr. T. Totally different.
T-Bone from Bone Collector. He started like a year and a half ago the free boot buff, where you go
Yeah.
up, you go up an escalator and you stick your foot in the brush that cleans off the.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God! The amount. I mean, all his stories are now are people that post that and tag him, and he reshares them. That's
Yeah.
literally all it is. The free boot buff, and I'm like, something so simple and stupid is yet so like great.
Yeah.
Well, and then but think about what that does for a person, right? When you associate with a brand, right? And especially on social media, like you want them to see your stuff. You want them to see your comments. You want them to see your picture that you posted. That's why you tag them. Like you want them to see that you like their stuff. You know, it kind of has that same sort of feel with like if you just like see a celebrity in the wild and you're like, hey, right? And get to maybe say hi to somebody. I think it has that same kind of feel. And stories are such a great way to access people like that, right? And so he does this one thing, people latch onto it, and they're able to like feel connected to him and get kind of that same
Recognition.
recognition, that same
Yeah.
kind of, oh, that was cool. You know, feel like they've been seen and heard by somebody who they admire and look up to and enjoy.
Yeah. Have you dove into like the algorithms
Mm-hmm.
and things like that? Do we want to get that deep?
We have some questions that that I solicited from the Instagram audience today that I want to get to.
Okay.
I had a couple of things. I want to, if somebody came to you and they're like, hey, I would like to be a quote unquote influencer, right? Or a brand who has a social media / internet following that will attract potential sponsors. Because we have a decent amount of our audience who is in that boat, right? They have a show, they take photos, they do this, that, and the other, and they want to maybe monetize that in some way, whether that's being an influencer or getting sponsorships. What kind of like practical advice would you give that person?
Are we saying as far as what we think they should do, or what we think the businesses want them to do?
Yes. I mean, what should they be doing that will make them an attractive, I guess, influencer or sponsorship for a company? Because Chris has been on both sides of that coin. So what would be some practical advice for somebody that they can start like applying yesterday?
Don't look at, I mean, if you want me to go, I would say I have two answers. The businesses want you, I would assume the businesses would want you to create relative content on a regular basis that pushes their product.
Mm-hmm.
Or that could push their product. I want you to create high quality content when it matters that doesn't shove product in my face.
Yeah.
What would you say, Chris?
So
And that goes into algorithms, which we were going to stay away from. But
I basically have two approaches to answering this. I have like a literal approach, like tactical. These are the things that I would do if I were you. And
Yeah.
then I have like a philosophical approach.
Give me the
first one.
The
no. Well, can
me-
you
the-
give me a philosophical and
give
then
me-
break that down into the literal?
Give me the philosophical is easy to go with, so we can do that and then go into the tactical. Philosophically, my first question is make for sure that you actually want to go the route of making money through sponsorships, because I wouldn't. Okay, so then this is me personally, and I think this totally depends on the person too, because some people are completely okay with it. I would never ever want to be sponsored. The amount of tension and back and forth. It's a weird relationship seeing sponsors go back and forth between the influencers and the sponsors. It is they're always very interesting relationships to navigate, and it never fails, especially if you're talking about getting multiple sponsors, that it ties you down and in many ways puts you in a cage as far as what you're able to do, the types of content that you can put out. So if somebody just says, hey, my end goal is I want to hunt for a living, or I want to put out hunting content, so I need sponsors to pay for that, then my first thought would be like, well, let's see if maybe there are some other ways that you can fulfill that dream of hunting and putting out hunting content without going the sponsorship route, because that may actually be better for you. Because if you can work a job or work some job in the outdoor industry that allows you to go on your 4 or 5 hunts a year and bring a video guy with you, that may actually be the route to go. Of course, you look at guys like Cameron Haynes, which is a massive name in the industry, probably the most popular bow hunter in the nation, or at least the most followers, I think. And sure, he's sponsored by like Under Armour, but he also worked like a 9-to-5 job, like on into his hunting career before.
He still does.
He still does. You know what I mean? So he doesn't make 100% of his income purely off of that. So that's something I would encourage you to look into, is like, do you really want to go the route of your entire income being based off of whether a sponsor sees you as valuable to your audience or not?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the philosophical answer.
So basically make sure that is exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. Because it can get dicey. And I'm talking to guys right now, especially after COVID, who, and most of the guys that I've worked with so far have been like smaller names. So like Pursuit Channel and down. So nobody in the Sportsman or Outdoor Channel. But what they're running into is sponsors who are just like cutting them. Like, oh, we have a 3-year deal. Well, I'm just going to pay half the contract and get out of it because we don't see you as valuable to the company anymore. And like, you can have good relationships with the people in the company, but at the end of the day, like, they've got to turn their profit too.
Right. And I can vouch for we've been seeing that for people all throughout the spectrum. I mean, I think it's just part of the climate right now. There's just a lot of,
and it was happening
there's a lot
before
of
COVID.
volatility.
It was happening before COVID, and then COVID just like pushed it over the edge. So, but as far as tactically what you can do, if you had to like set out, these are the specific goals that I need to hit. I've helped a couple of different influencers put together, like, basically every time they renew a contract or like apply for like a sponsorship contract, they have to fill out a list of details, which basically like lists out how many impressions they're getting, how many views they're getting per month, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I would figure out how much it is that you need to make to do what it is that you need to do, whether that's $500 a month or whether that's $5,000 a month. And then based off of, if you could get, because we're seeing influencers go from anywhere from $10 per 1,000 views to like $50 or $60 per 1,000 views, depending on like how well known they are. Figure out how many impressions you have to get in order to make that amount of money.
Yeah.
So like, if you have to get, like, if you say, I don't necessarily want to go full time, but I need $500 a month to justify what I'm doing. Well, how many impressions would you have to get at $10 per 1,000 impressions to get $500 a month? And then go to that company that maybe it's just one company in the beginning, and go to that company and say, hey, I'm getting this many thousand impressions a month. What would it be worth to you per month if I put out 4 posts, 1 post a week for you, or whatever it was, or made a video for you every 2 weeks? And you're getting this many impressions from it. at $10 per 1,000 impression. Like, would you be willing to do this deal and negotiate with them? And there's got to be some negotiating to it. And that's a very basic level of how I see it working right now, because like social media is such a new game, and like there's not always set CPM, which a CPM is like cost per 1,000 like impressions. So, you know, some influencers, like I'm working with one right now who's getting paid like $58 per 1,000, which is like, compared to what most social media influencers are getting, it's quite a bit. So like the rate varies. And basically build your audience to the point that you're getting the impressions necessary for it to be worth it to the brand that you desire to work with. That would be my like very basic level idea.
So on a building side of things, what are a couple of practical things somebody can be doing to try to build their audience?
You want to talk about $1.80?
Talk about whatever you want. Yeah.
Okay.
I want stuff that, like me, Ryer, who wants to start building my audience, whether that's for me or whether that's for maybe a brand that I am a part of, whatever it is. Like,
Okay.
I want to know how I can build the impression so that I am marketable. To whatever it is, to whoever it is that I want to be marketable to.
The thing that so I'll preface. I want to go into this next step very carefully and make sure that I put it out there that I'm not an influencer. I am a field staff on a show where I'm sponsored, so I do get, you know, my impressions do technically sell, but I'm not like tied to that. What I will say is that towards the end of the season, I guess late November last year, I decided, okay, if I'm going to work with influencers, I need to know how I need to know how building an account works. So I started actually setting out to build my account. Until then, I didn't necessarily care, because I was kind of like what I talked about earlier. I was like, I don't necessarily need a ton of followers. I just need the right people to see it.
Right.
But then I was like, well, if I'm going to work with these people to help them build their accounts, I need to also make sure I know how to do it myself. So I'll preface what I'm about to say by saying this is just some of the things that I've done since like the beginning of December of 2020 until the end of, what is this, February now?
Yeah, we're about in March.
Okay. So beginning of December to beginning of March, what is that, 3 months?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So at the beginning of December, I was at right about 800 followers. Right now, I'm sitting at about 2,335, all organic. No like follow, unfollow. No like paid like buying followers or anything like that. So 1,500 followers roughly gained over the course of 3 months, and it's been all organic. So if you're talking specifically about getting more impressions and building an audience of people who actually engage with your content, basically what I've been doing is kind of what we talked about the other day. I said $1.80, so I feel like I should do some explaining to that.
You can explain it when it becomes relevant. Like, you don't have to say $1.80 right now.
Okay.
Y'all just keep that in the back of your heads, and we will explain that.
Okay.
So just go through, start to finish, however you wanted to.
So basically my thought process is, well, if you're going to try and build followers with the purpose of like selling on the impressions, then they need to be followers there needs to be an audience that's like within the niche that you're trying to get sponsored in, right? So the outdoor industry. So how do I build a following of people in the outdoor industry, whether it be creatives or whether it be like actual hunters? So the first step before anything else was like start actually putting out that kind of content. Start putting out the types of photos and videos that's going to appeal and bring value to the people who are in that niche. So that was the first thing.
It's like when somebody looks at your page, like, oh, this is a person who I'd like to follow.
Exactly.
And you got content that catches their eye and interests them.
Yep. And I won't go into the details of like how to take the photos or anything like that. And if anybody who wants to know how to set up the most ergonomic way to set up your bio and lay out your stories and all, like, you can Google that, like, because it changes on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
But
and there's that's a very, very subjective and stylistic thing as well.
The number one thing, and I do use some hashtags on my post, on like, I guess, relevant hashtags, just because I feel like there's some organic traffic that comes to my page from it, but 99% of it is not from hashtags. The absolute killer for me has been engaging on people's pages and posts that I currently do not follow / do not follow me.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I came to this was because I was looking through some Gary V content,
Right.
and he talked about like how, for the most part, organic reach on Instagram is dead. The days of just posting a photo and people randomly seeing it is no longer there.
It's too saturated.
It's too saturated. There's way more content being distributed, and
Well,
there's
you
only
don't
so
even
much
see-
attention.
I don't even see all the posts from the people I follow on my
Right.
feed.
Well, you think about it just like hunting, not to interrupt you, but like people doing hashtags. I guarantee you 99.8% of hunting photos out there have the hashtag hunting.
Right.
Yep.
Well, it's so oversaturated, no one's going to scroll down that far to find. If you posted it yesterday with hashtag hunting, everything that's been posted in the last 10 minutes is way oversaturated that timeline.
Right. Yep. So unless you're one of those people who can consistently find yourself in a featured post on a hashtag, then the chances of you actually being seen organically through a hashtag is very little.
It's another reason why I don't do it.
So, however, what I have done, I'll introduce the $1.80 strategy. So Gary Vaynerchuk has this thing called the $1.80 strategy, where basically he said every day go into the top what did he say? The top 10 hashtags in your niche. So
Yep.
like if you were trying to grow a hunting page, go into whitetail hunting, archery life, archery season. Pick your 10.
And there's tools out there you can use to find these hashtags. Do more
Exactly.
research and find the 10 that are the biggest.
Yep. And then each of those 10 is going to have 9 featured posts. So that's 90 posts so far. And then his punchline is go into each of those posts and leave your 2 cents on each of those posts. So go in, if somebody posts a picture of a buck, legitimately go in, look at their page. Hey man, nice buck, congratulations. Or like you see a picture of somebody saying like in the stand again, grinding or whatever whatever it is they're saying, like their photo. Good luck, man. Hope you get one.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever it is, or like sitting at the office wishing I could be in the stand. Engage with them. Don't just like hop in there and drop like a thumbs up and a fire emoji, but like actually engage with them.
Well,
And
you could probably say honestly, like everybody knows what that is now.
Yeah.
Like it's not. If I get one of those, I'm to the point where if I see one of those, I almost want to
Delete
comment something sarcastic.
Oh, I do.
Because it's so spammy.
When I get like clothing companies that do that on my page, I just
Yeah.
I'll put like a throw up emoji.
Yeah, it's so spammy.
We'd love to collaborate. Send us a DM.
Nope.
How about I send you this block notification?
Yeah.
So
To that point, don't just like put a thumbs up. Like say something meaningful that you actually feel.
And something crazy happens when you engage with people. They look at your page.
Yeah. They're like, who is this guy?
And then if they look at your page, get this, and they like the content that you're putting out, they will follow you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been basically if you're gonna say, hey, like, just real quick, like, how could I like amass a following? I can't give an answer necessarily for everybody, but I know the fact that I've been able to put on 1,500 followers in the last 3 months has something, and there are people who are like actually engaging with my post. I went from when
Right.
I would put out a hunting picture to getting like 6 likes, because even though I had 800 followers, they weren't all people who are into hunting.
Right.
It wasn't a relative audience. I went from getting like 6 likes per post to getting, like right now, I'll get anywhere from like 100 to like 130,
Mm-hmm.
which in the grand scheme of things isn't massive, but it's like, that's a 1,000 times, or
That's a lot.
1,000% increase.
Especially when you consider the fact that the less followers you have on Instagram, the harder it is to grow.
Exactly.
Like if you have only a few followers, Instagram really isn't putting your stuff.
Yep.
And also you don't have that social proof,
Yep.
right? If you go to a page and they got 45,000 followers, you're like immediately you're like, oh, there must be something here.
Mm-hmm.
If you've only got 500 followers, people are like, oh, well,
Yeah.
let's see what's up.
So that was the first one. That was the main thing, was the hashtags, going into the hashtags and doing that. If you wanted to get really tactical, 9 times out of 10, if you land on a smaller page that only has 300 or 400 followers and you comment on their post or like their post, they're more likely to follow you back than somebody who has 10,000 because they have less information and clogging up their feed. So that's a thing. The other thing was you mentioned social proof. If you have somebody who you follow who has a big following or who has a loyal following, maybe you follow somebody who has 10 or 15,000 followers, or maybe you like get followed back by somebody like I did. Like I got followed, like when I met Sydney Wells, she followed me back. Actually, we follow each other on Instagram. Something crazy happens. Like whenever you like go into her followers and start like engaging with her followers, they will see that you are followed by her. And when they see that somebody that they look up to follows you, they will also, like, a lot of times they will also follow you back.
Didn't work. I've worked here since July 26, and I've gained like 15 followers.
Well, Caleb's audience is, they see enough of you. They don't want any more.
I like to think
Fair enough.
Our content, our funnel is, there's the hunting industry, people who like hunting. Then there's Copeland Creative, which we can catch a lot of those people because we post cool content stuff. Yeah. But also we're narrowing it down because now we're a production company, and like that inherently is going to narrow the amount of people who are interested in like seeing production things. And then you've got Redneck Tech, which is like even narrower.
Hunting, content creation stuff.
Right, which is a super, like, that's like a super niche.
Yeah.
Almost.
And by the way, if you're lucky enough to meet somebody or know somebody, then that's a great start. Like I met Sydney and we knew each other. But there's also been people that I didn't know that I was like, if I could build this connection with them, it would be really good. Plus, I also really enjoyed following their content because they actually put out good stuff.
Right.
If you consistently engage on their posts, even though their feed may be blown up with all the hundreds of people who are commenting, if they see you consistently over time engaged in their community, there's also a good chance that they'll give you a follow back too.
Because you're supporting them.
Because you're supporting them. And believe it or not, the people on the other side of that app are also humans just like you are.
Well, and 100%, like just me managing the Cope Creative and the Redneck Tech pages, like, you get to, like, I get to be familiar with people's usernames, and you know, there's people who comment a lot and respond to a lot of the stories, and people who ask questions and all that stuff, and I start to become familiar with them, and I start to feel like, you know, I know them, even though, you know, we've never met in real life, a lot of these people, but they're always interacting with these pages, and I'm always interacting with them, and it's like a cool kind of, I don't know, virtual friendship. Yep. I mean, you get to know people that way. And I feel like I know them, and they probably feel like they know me too because of the interaction that we have in on the pages.
If this was the 1800s, we would all be going to the town square to communicate with each other and try and meet people and build connections.
Yeah.
Well, it's 2021, and the town square is now on the top 5 communication platforms that exist on our phones. It's the same concept. Go to where the people are who you want to connect with and connect with them and provide value to them that makes them want to connect with you back.
Yeah. I mean, and to the end that some people will say, like, oh, man, I don't want to message or I don't want to comment on that page. Like, you know, I'm just me. I don't have that many followers. They're this big, huge person or this, that, and the other, kind of being maybe embarrassed about it. Like, I think unless the person that you're doing that is just a jerk, in which case, you know, you'll know that. Like, I don't think anybody is going to be weird or judgmental about you doing that if you're authentically engaging.
Especially
right? Like,
not if they click on your page now and you have 60 followers, and then a month from now they click on it and you have 140, and then later they somewhere down the line you've built, you know, people respect the grind.
Right. And the same thing, like, I love the Redneck Tech page and the Redneck Tech audience and the Copeland Creative page and the Copeland Creative audience, and I love all the interactions that I get to have with all of these people who come from all over the United States, all different walks of life, all different kinds of personalities. Like, to me, it's so much fun. And, you know, like, obviously the reason that we do Redneck Tech is because we love to help people learn how to do what we do. But, like, I get so much fulfillment from all of those interactions and making all of those connections and building all of those like friendships, right? And I think that I'm not alone in that. I feel like people who have pages are for the most part like me.
Yep.
If you're authentically engaging and you're, you know, commenting and sharing and replying and stuff like that, like people love that. Everybody's just a person, and everybody wants to feel like, you know, people out there value them, value what they do, especially on a creative platform, are valuing the content that they put out and are enjoying that content. Like I there's literally zero reason to not engage with people.
Yep.
I got this job solely off of because I saw I saw the hashtag the hunting photographer.
Mm-hmm.
Was searching through it just to see what was on there. Saw Copeland Creative. Searched through Copeland Creative's Instagram. Saw what I like to do a lot is tap on photos and see what people tag. Products, people, whatever. Saw that Caleb had tagged Redneck Tech on one of his photos. Looked it up on iTunes. First one I ever listened to was the week that he posted podcast number 7. Don't remember what it was, but it was podcast number 7. Listened all the way back through 1 through 6, listened to 7, started listening to the podcast, followed him and Redneck Tech on Instagram, started engaging on posts that or not engaging on posts. I don't comment on photos on posts. I don't do it. But I will engage in stories.
And DMs are huge too, which that honestly, depending on the situation, may even be a bigger deal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was doing. I would DM him questions that I would have, and he wouldn't. If he would answer it right away, unless he was going to do a podcast on it very soon. Yeah. And then he'd tell me, "Hey, I'm going to answer it in the podcast." All right, I'd listen to the podcast. So he was driving me to his podcast, get the question answered. Goes on. Redneck Tech and Copeland Creative end up following me. I end up getting to meet Caleb because I was asking him enough questions that I felt comfortable enough to hound the absolute crap out of him about, I'll come work for you one weekend for free. I just want to meet you and learn.
Yeah.
Had me down to do the fishing thing with Jamie the first time that you had to go back and do. Down the kayak shoal bass thing that sucked. That was in the summer of 19.
Summer of 69?
No, it'd be 19.
Nice.
The summer of 19.
Pop culture reference.
The spring of 2020, Caleb freelanced me to do 2 jobs. January, I moved up here and started working full time.
Yep.
Solely off the fact that
and
I didn't go on searching hunting photographer looking for a job.
Yeah.
I just found someone that did cool content off something that I liked.
Right.
Personal connection.
Just literally, and I needed help with stuff, so I was asking him questions. I wasn't asking him questions to get a job. I was just asking him questions off of stuff I actually had questions about.
And the cool thing is Caleb could have looked at that and been like he could have, way back then, even Caleb not enjoying social media the way that it seems like he doesn't enjoy it, he could have said, this isn't worth my time, and not done it. It maybe have been fine. But when you look at, like, you say, well, what's the ROI on me as a business putting out content that I don't make direct cash from? Well, the ROI is, and whenever it come time that Caleb needed to scale up and hire somebody to do work for him, he didn't have to worry about going through 2 or 3 videographers that used to be freelancers but now are like full-time videographers and trying to teach them in the culture. He was able to go back and say, here's this guy who has been asking me questions on, he's a fan of the podcast, he's familiar with me and my tone. He knows the things that he knows the culture of how I shoot videos somewhat because he's learned it from me telling him answers. So I can bring him on, do a couple of freelance shoots, and if that works out, go from there. So it's good for Caleb because, he saves resources in the long run because he doesn't have to go through 100 different videographers. But also, it's a business. He's also profiting off of you being here. And it's good for you because otherwise,
I'm profiting off of me being here. I'm getting a paycheck. So.
Yeah. You could be working at a desk doing Excel spreadsheets or shooting like dental videos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
or weddings. God, those suck.
oh gosh, yeah.
Shh, can't say that.
So-
You still have another one to do.
Weddings suck.
So, the ROI isn't always obvious, but connection is always a good thing.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
And it's the same thing it's always been, right? At the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, if you can develop a personal connection, you will do better at whatever
Yep.
it is. If you're looking for a job, having a personal connection, knowing somebody, having a network
Mhm.
is how you're going to get a job
I'll-
at a high level.
Go ahead.
And just kind of, because I feel like we're kind of finished with this. I just want to add one more thing for people who do want to be influencers. I want to say this for the purpose of maybe being historically correct, because this hasn't happened yet, but I want to make kind of a prediction of where I see things going.
A prediction.
Um,
Dun, dun.
Is
so
dramatic.
no, maybe. I think it could tick a lot of people off. I think
I'm here for it.
so. If you are, I think the market for influencers who aren't 50,000 followers, but who are actually 5 to 15,000 followers, which is actually very attainable for the majority of people. I think the market for those type of influencers is actually going way up.
100% agree.
And that may not necessarily be a cash deal. That may be a free bow from Fred Bear or whoever, not throwing names out or anything, but they're kind of one of the brands that's taking advantage of that right now and growing because of it. Like the market for those type of influencers is growing, and I think it's going to continue to grow because these outdoor brands are going to realize that the money that they're spending on some of these big guys on TV isn't worth what maybe it was 5 or 10 years ago, or maybe even 2 years ago. So don't be discouraged because you only have 500 followers, because there's a girl that I connected with in Oklahoma who had, when I first connected with her, she had 8,000 followers, and now she's like around 14 or 15,000, but she's gotten sponsored. And I don't think they're all money sponsors, but she's definitely getting free product, and it has helped her be able to hunt, which for a lot of people,
That's all they want.
that's all they want. If they can
Fund the hunting.
fund the hunting, and then all they have to worry about is buying tags or like, some gear, then that's huge, right? So don't
Again,
think
the same question that Caleb will often ask people when they say, "Hey, I want to have a show."
Mhm.
What's the point of the show? What do
Yep.
you want to get out of it?
Exactly.
Do you want it because you just want to see yourself? Do you want it because you want to make enough money to cover the show and cover your hunts? At some cool places. Or do you want it because you want to make this your full-time career?
Yeah.
Is the show going to be your avenue to that? Or any number of other things. I mean, it could be a combination of those things.
Yep.
It could be maybe it's a creative outlet, but you got to know what that is. So then you can take that and go, okay, if the goal is this,
Mm-hmm.
I need to get here. And now you've got benchmarks and you can start working towards them.
Yep. So that's massive. The second side of that is there's something that we mentioned that I think maybe we take for granted in the conversation that I think is important to mention. You said building connections and relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
You actually have to enjoy reaching out to people. You can't just spam people. You got to
Right.
want the conversation. And the reason I say that is because I predict this is one part of that prediction that I think that there's going to be a huge market for new influencers. I have met several people in the outdoor industry over the last 5 years that it was extremely discouraging to me and this was just me knowing them on a surface level, some of them a little bit deeper. It was discouraging to me how little they thought of their fans. And they're able to get away with that because up until recently, they put their show on the Outdoor Channel and the impressions came from the channel, so they were able to sell against that.
Mm-hmm.
But we're entering a time where your influence with your community is going to be so dependent upon your interaction with them.
And it's so much more personal.
And it's so much more personal that those people who have just been in it for, and again, this is just my opinion. We'll see how it plays out. I want to go back and revisit this in 5 years and see. But the people who are just in it for the money and have disdain for their for their followers, however that works, the people who are putting
Yeah.
food into your kid's mouth, but the people, the big names who don't appreciate the people who follow them are not going to be able to carry over that same level of personability whenever, as this communication shift continues to come full swing. And that's another reason that I think that there's going to be a huge market for smaller influencers and new people to come in and take over as the face of the industry.
Well, and you have to think too, like everybody, you know that, right? As an individual, you can feel that. And it's always that thing. It's like, it not necessarily this, but, people say never meet your heroes. They'll just let you down.
Yep.
Because you build up this vision of this celebrity to be a certain way, and this is how they act on TV, or this is how they act in the movies, or this is how they act now on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And you meet them, and they're not like that.
Yep.
Maybe they're a jerk to you, and that hurts a lot, right? It really hurts an individual to have this vision of somebody and to almost feel that rejection
Yep.
from that person. And for a long time, the only people who would experience that are like if you ran into that person on the streets, right? But now with social media, there is almost endless opportunities for people to feel that about a celebrity or about an influencer.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not in such a dramatic way, right? Because it's very dramatic when you meet somebody and they're mean to you. But think of like if you comment on something or you interact with something and you just nothing, crickets. You don't get a response. You don't get a like on the comment, or you don't feel like the people who ran this account like saw it or validated it. Like you're like, oh well, that doesn't make me feel that great. And it's a small thing,
yeah.
But as an individual, you want people to give to interact with you, and then if you don't get it, it hurts. And as a business and as a person who has a social media, and if you're a person who's trying to build an audience, like you have to interact and value and enjoy genuinely your audience. It's imperative, I think.
Absolutely. This is the thing that blows my mind about the last 3 months, my social experiment that I've been telling you about. I have people who hit me up continuously in my DMs, so during hunting season. So full disclosure, as much as I love the outdoors and hunting, my hunting experience is actually somewhat limited. I've killed deer with my rifle. I've never killed a buck with a bow. That was like my thing that I set out to try and do this past season. So I'm not by any means even though I've been around it a lot, I'm not like a super experienced hunter. I'm not, that's not me. But I have kids who are like high school or maybe a little bit older or maybe a little bit younger who during hunting season found my account after me starting to reach out and still DMing me on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey man, saw that you went out to the stand, hope you get one. Because I would DM them back, and the more that I would DM them back or that I would comment back on their post, the more they would engage with me. And it's I don't ever plan to necessarily capitalize on a big audience, but it's amazing to me that instead of him hitting up Michael Waddell, who's a far more, that's kind of a glamorized person, but look at archery. Instead of him hitting up John Dudley or something like that,
right?
He's engaging with me and DMing me once or twice a week because I'm engaging back with him. That's not a knock on Dudley. Dudley has so many people hitting up his DMs that he couldn't possibly get back to everybody.
Right.
But that just goes to show that there's a market for building an audience that not everybody can fill. There's so much opportunity out there, and who knows where those relationships could go. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and I think no matter what level of the game you're at, I think it's important to, like you said, just be humble and really understand and know that you got to be in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
People are so intuitive, and if you're not in it, and like you said, the reason that you don't like some of the influencers pushing products is because you can feel through how they portray or how they act that they're just pushing products to make money.
They're doing it for the gram.
Right. As opposed to maybe somebody who has less followers, but they they have a product that they push, and you respect their opinion, you respect them as an individual, you have a good opinion of them because of how they interact and how they are, you're so much more likely to take their opinion on that product in a good way, in a way that will influence potentially how you spend your dollars on that product.
A good influencer will tell you when something is good, and a good influencer will tell you when something sucks, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you know, it's important for everybody to just, like, if you're, I think this goes for everything. I think that we as people have gotten to the point where, like, we see social media as this way to portray our lives in a way that, you know, is glorious and everything's good and cool and fun and this, that, and the other. And you can use social media basically as a lens to distort your life however you want it, right? You social media is a almost an editing software for your life, right? You can show the good parts and you can hide all the bad parts. And obviously you don't want to put all of your personal baggage out on social, but at the same time, you do need to be authentic, I feel like, on social. And people genuinely connect with that authenticity. And they will appreciate it. And then you have an audience that connects with you as an individual, likes you for who you are, and because of that, you can connect with them because you can just be yourself. Yep. You don't have to be anybody else, and that now there's no disconnect between who you are online or who you are in the brand and who you are here with how you interact with people, because it's the same thing, and you don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about people not liking you or being self-conscious about it, because you're being authentically yourself.
And by the way, when you are, so okay, oh yeah, this is so good. So, you mentioned earlier, like, putting out the content. Well, we talked earlier about putting out the content that you like to put out.
Right.
If you are constantly putting up a front and just posting things that you think is going to get likes, I promise you it's going to get exhausting.
Yeah.
And it may be
it's
tedious.
Not sustainable.
It may be right. It may be tedious for you, even though right now, because you may feel like you're still learning the platform, or for whatever reason, it may still be tedious for you to go through the process of putting out these posts. But it's not. You don't run the risk of, okay, let's say hypothetically I go on and I front on social media and I'm just doing it for the likes, and I'm building this persona of myself that isn't real. Mm-hmm. So two things happen there. One, it's not sustainable. You're going to drive yourself up a wall. The other side of it is, and I'm not a clinical psychologist by any means, but there's so many studies pointing to the fact that when you do that, there's subconscious, something happens in your subconscious when you feel like you're putting out content and people don't actually like you for who you are. They're liking you for who you're pretending to be. Mm-hmm. There's so many bad side effects from that.
Well, it's essentially you're creating this idealized portrait of yourself that you can't live up to. And inherently, I think you as an individual, if you have this like higher version and you can't live up to it, you're going to be unhappy. Yeah. Because you're basically telling yourself, hey, I'm not good enough. I'm not this, I'm not that. So I need to make it look like I'm this. Yeah. And I think your brain is like, well, if he feels like he needs to make himself this way, then there must be something wrong.
And I want to piggyback off of what you said earlier about the relatable content and like showing an inside like story of your life. My 3 most liked photos of all time: when my post about when my grandmother died, my post about when my grandfather died, and my post when I got my second college degree. Mm-hmm.
I found that one about your grandfather the other day when I went back and scrolled through your Instagram, and it hit me hard.
Yeah, like everyone that knows me, not everybody, 90% of people that know me as Clay, the guy that films hunting.
Right.
And my 3 most liked photos are those 3: 2 deaths and a college graduation.
Yeah.
The two photos about my grandparents, or posts about my grandparents' deaths, are like the most recent photos, like 4 years ago. The photo about my graduation is taken on an Android from my dad in his kitchen holding my just degree in my hands. Like horrible, horrible photos. And this goes on to the algorithm, kind of piggybacking off of what you were saying. I know we weren't going to get into algorithms, but I don't want people to think that they can just do what you did for 3 months and then stop.
No, I mean, I'm continuously doing it.
Yeah, but I don't want people to think they can just do it for 3 months and stop and have all those followers, because I just went, like an idiot, went back to school. I'm getting a marketing degree. I just wrote a 4-page paper on Instagram. And their
Why didn't you tell me this?
and their algorithms.
I didn't know you were doing research.
And their algorithms. But, well, I got to save a little something for myself.
I don't really like how you've been handling this. You got your own personal notes. You've got your own little research projects over there.
And a 4-page dissertation.
And a 4-page dissertation. Like, what is the end game?
Instagram.
Are you trying to take my job?
I do not want your job. Instagram is known to unfollow people for you and follow people for you. So how do I want to word this? You have to post the same relatable content all the time in order to be put in front of the people that you're trying to market to.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I understood it in my research, Rye Reporter, is that, and tell me if I'm wrong because you actually do this, Chris, but if you take my page, for example, I usually post twice a week because I don't care. I really don't care. If I post 2 hunting posts, like say on a Monday or a Thursday, my odds of being put in front of the hunting industry people or whatever goes up like 4%. If I did the math and the algorithm correctly. As soon as I post something about my college graduation, it drops down to like astronomical negative percentages. Like to where I would have to post 7 or 8 more hunting related content posts in a row just to get back to neutral.
Yeah.
So you have to post the same type of content on the same regular schedule forever in order to continue to grow. If that made any sense.
So the moral of the story is social media is not a, hey, we build it and then
correct.
It stays, right? It's not a building. You can't just build it and be done with
correct.
it.
So like
you need to continually put content out there.
Like on Cope Creative, when we do all this stuff about like people that we're filming or projects we're working on, we're continually growing and growing and growing and growing. And then when we took Caleb's son hunting a couple weeks ago and we posted that photo of him sitting on the Diamondback, instantly killed our growth as far as what the algorithm's concerned.
Yeah, but also I know that that's what the algorithm does, but at the same time, like part of my paralysis is like just on my own personal page is look at all the different things we take photos of. And maybe this is me because I am a person who thrives on variety. I don't want to, on my personal page, I don't want to post like within a clean little
and
that's niche. That's because I don't live my life inside of that, and my work does not reflect that. And I think the same thing goes for like the Cope Creative, right? We do a good variety of work, and I think it's safe to say we all enjoy doing that.
Right.
Like, I love to make a hunting video, but also I had a great time making a trailer video, right? And then the Keys trip is in the ocean, and then we'll do turkey trips, and then we'll do whitetail here and elk here, and we've got some other projects that are entirely outside that whole scope. And it's like, so you can either be a slave to the algorithm, or you can create an audience that is engaged, who enjoys seeing that variety, which is what we do, and allow that to drive your engagement and drive your growth.
Well, and the algorithm is so botched that it is so botched that it's continually changing to the fact that you can't keep up with it.
No. You've been over there smirking, And so I need to know what it is that you're smirking about.
Probably because everything I just said is in like so far out in space, it's not even
Chris
close.
is, for those of you who are listening, for those of you who are watching, you've seen this, but he's this entire conversation back and forth that Clay and I have been having. He's been over there smirking and looking at his phone. I've been watching you, Chris, and I need to know what it is that he is smirking about.
Okay.
Caleb might be watching this. If you wanted to say hi to him,
He says hi.
Caleb, your dad says hey. So what is it that you're smirking about, Chris?
That's Caleb's dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we get him on the podcast? I have so many questions. I have so many questions. Okay. No. So
I think he would like to be in front of the camera
So
like exponentially less than
less,
Caleb would.
and that's
And
saying
Caleb
something.
already hates being in front of the camera.
Okay. So this conversation is so nuanced. It's so nuanced because,
It is.
in my opinion, it goes back to what we talked about earlier about what is the purpose of your page.
Right.
Because maybe the content, like maybe you're like, maybe the likes that you're constantly getting on your post may go down for a period of time. I can't deny that because I've seen that. My argument would maybe lie more on the side of does that necessarily matter?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't take my advice. I have 774 followers. Do not take my advice.
Well,
I
no.
was just speaking off of what my research told me. That paper did get me an A, by the way. But just saying.
And by the
Let
way,
me ghostwrite one for you.
I have 2,300.
Let me
but,
ghostwrite one.
But I have there are people with 100,000 who would probably disagree with me on this because I've heard very outspoken people like in the social media world who get super ticked at Instagram because of their algorithm. So my measly 20, your follower count doesn't necessarily pin you as anything. But so kind of what you were talking about, yeah, it may drop your residual likes for a period of time. But is that necessarily a bad thing? Because like what we talked about earlier, the purpose of Cope Creative may not necessarily be to build a massive following in order to monetize off of them. The purpose of Cope Creative may be to build a comprehensive portfolio and to show people the types of content that can be expected and the type of people that you're working with and to keep people updated on the work that you're currently doing.
Right.
And then when somebody says, oh, I'm looking for a production company, and they land on your page, whether that be from somebody referring them to you or whether that's them finding you organically because they search a hashtag for outdoors production or whatever it is.
Right.
That content is there, regardless of what that does to because what Instagram is going to do, and the reason that it does that, for the best that I can tell, is because the Instagram algorithm is really good at doing one thing: keeping people on the app.
Right.
Right? And it knows that as much as I love you, Clay, that I'm not going to engage with your college degree as much as what I'm going to engage with you in the field.
Clay's not going to engage with you at all on Instagram unless you DM him.
So, well, the purpose of me saying that is Instagram knows me so well because it's had data on me from since 2010 or 2012, whatever it is. It's got however many years of data on me that it knows that even if it's just a fraction of a percent, I'm more likely to keep scrolling or to back off or whatever it is if I see one type of a post versus another, which is why we so often see posts from the same people over and over and over again. And we may get mad at that. But at the end of the day, whether we want to admit it or not, it's based on our own behavior.
Right.
Because we are more likely to engage with them, even if it's something that we hate, because God knows I hate seeing New York Times articles on my Facebook feed. I hate it.
Or political posts.
But
however,
Facebook knows that I'm going to engage with it. And it knows I'm going to look at it knows I'm going to look at what people say on the post and then comment back. And
it doesn't know what you're doing is trolling.
Yeah,
it just sees that
care.
Now you're here on this post spending 3 hours talking to another user.
Well, it doesn't care what I'm doing on the post because when I open the article to see whatever BS the New York Times put out, it knows that it's going to be able to serve me an ad within that article, which they're going to monetize off of.
Right.
Yep. Instagram quantifies if they run a and I know this for a fact because I read it off of Instagram. Their whatever it is, like how you can make money on Instagram, like official analytics or whatever, that if you run a paid promotion on Instagram and someone is scrolling through Instagram and they scroll past it and never pause on it,
Mm-hmm.
they can quantify that to $1 in profit. You don't even have to touch it. You don't have to pause long enough to read one word on that paid promotion. But if Amazon runs or Small Rig runs something for a camera cage on Instagram on your page, and you just scroll through it and don't even stop on it, they can quantify that in the long run to $1 of profit.
Well, and how they can do that is because it's based on impression. So, like, one of the most common, like, you in marketing school, I'm sure you guys have looked all over the numerous, like, KPIs that there
Yep.
are for measuring. KPIs, key performance indicator. So, the CPM is one of the most, I guess, the most used, because it's basically anytime that somebody sees your content, it's considered an impression, whether they interact with it or not.
Correct.
So what they can do is they can say, well, based on your scrolling speed, they know, even though you didn't engage with it, they know that you at least saw the name, or you at least saw that.
It was
that brand.
recognizable.
Yep. So they can serve that as an impression.
You might not look at the camera cage or click on it, but you saw Small Rig.
Right. Which we can talk about psychologically, whether or not that actually does anything for them or not. But yeah, so at the end of the day, they're able to build impressions off of that, which is how Facebook makes their money, or Instagram makes their money. You don't pay Facebook and you don't pay Instagram to be on their platform. Your data and them being able to advertise based off of your information is what pays Mark Zuckerberg's bills.
Yeah, I think we can get way off into the weeds of this and all of that. But there's a cool documentary on Netflix that covers this. I don't know if you've seen it. I'm trying to think of it.
I'm so scared to watch any documentary about social media because I'm so scared that I'm going to disagree with what they say.
Well, I watched it.
Is it
because
good?
It was really good. It's called The Social Dilemma. And essentially what it is it's a bunch of people who worked for social media companies at some point in various roles, a lot of them in developmental roles, basically talking about the original purposes of social media and then how it evolved into what it is today and the mechanisms that they put in place to basically run these social media companies and run these apps for better or worse. And it's really interesting how they pose these questions. It's really interesting. They do some like little scenes where essentially they it's almost like have you seen Inside Out? Inside Out's that Disney movie where it's about the emotions in somebody's head, like controlling them. But basically they kind of phrase it like each person has like a team of these experts like sitting in their phone, and the expert's only job is to keep them on the platform, to keep them coming back for more. And it's like, how do we do that, right? And it's this constant strategy meeting.
Well, so
but it's a really interesting documentary. Will you definitely rethink your habits on social media after watching it? Yeah. Are you going to go away from it and be like, oh, I'm going to do this, that, and the other, and then probably not do that? Probably also yes. But it's also a very interesting look at the cogs behind the social media apps. And from a very technical and strategic point of view, understanding the purpose of social media from their side of things. Because at the end of the day, I think it's important to note that you're playing on their ball field. When you are on Instagram, when you're on Facebook, when you're on YouTube, when you're anywhere, right? And if you're on any type of social media platform, you're on their turf. They set the rules of the game, and they are the ones who get to make the rules. They get to tell you what you can and cannot do. They get to tell you how the game is played, all of those things, right? I think I just said the same thing 4 different ways, so sorry about that, guys.
which is, by the way, why it's important to be an omni-platform, omni-channel,
Right. And
versus just one channel.
yeah, and so just like any other sport, right, they want to make a profit, and they are going to rig the game to make their profit. And they all do it a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, they're all going to do it. And where I get annoyed is like people complaining about social media and it being bad or evil or them setting these rules, right? And it's like, well, you're not paying for this service. And at the end of the day, you are a free person and can decide on how to use it. And so social media is, to an extent, what you make of it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as whether it's good or bad for you, you get to decide that. And you get to decide that personally and based on how you want to use it and using it for your own goals and purposes. And also, these are all private companies and they're for profit, and it's one thing to make them out to be big huge evil corporations, but if you're going to be on their platform, you have to play by their rules.
Well, look what they just did with the newest update on Instagram.
Moving all those things around.
So you scroll down through your timeline, and once you have looked at all of your new posts since the time that you last refreshed your timeline, it says you're all caught up. Click here to view older posts, or you keep scrolling and it gives you posts by accounts that you don't follow, but that are relative to what you follow.
I've never gotten that message.
Yeah, so like you scroll, so I just refreshed it and scrolling down, that's the most recent post on my timeline. So then it goes down here. I've seen everything new. You can either click to see what you've already seen, or you go through a bunch of posts that you don't follow but are relative to what you follow.
Yeah, never got that message on mine. Apparently I follow way too many people.
Maybe.
Or I don't scroll for long enough. I don't want to get off too into the weeds about this. Do you have anything to say about kind of what I just said? I don't want to leave you hanging on that, but there's a couple of questions that I wanted to make sure we got to from the Instagram before we...
Nope, not necessarily. Just don't take what we have in front of us for granted, because it won't last forever.
And follow me.
And follow me, Chris Wayne Gerlach.
No, me. Follow me.
Oh.
All right, so...
And buy my drone.
he's still hawking the drone. We've got a few questions from the Instagram today, so I want to go through them. Ryer_Porter asks, how often should I post? That was so that I didn't forget to ask that. How often should I post, Chris?
As often as you want to.
Perfect.
Just as long as you're not posting because of insecurity, and just as long as you are not posting because of likes.
Perfect. I like that answer. Yeah. Interrupted Steve. Why are people interrupting you, Steve? That's not very nice. Next time they interrupt you, interrupt them interrupting you. That's what I say you should do. I'm actually genuinely curious, like how that username came about. Interrupted Steve, please tell me. I'm very curious. I want to know. Audience building and post engagement. So we talked about audience building a little bit already, as far as the $1.80, the putting out content that's interesting to your audience. That's obviously something that's hard to talk about on a podcast in general, because the type of content that your audience is interested in is different depending on the audience you are trying to build.
You know how I found out? By making content and seeing what people liked and what people didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to know the people that follow you.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like when you hang out with a new group of people and you try telling a joke and you're like, well, that kind of joke doesn't work with them.
Mm-hmm.
But then you try a different kind of joke and you're like, okay, they like dry humor.
Yeah.
I can roll with that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know if you never crack the joke.
Yeah. So I think Interrupted Steve, I'm just going to keep saying that username because it's fun. The first thing you want to do, obviously, is figure out, like, what does your audience look like? Paint a picture of your ideal audience depending on the goal that you're trying to attain with that audience. And then, like Chris said, try different types of posts, see what they like, and then, through that, you'll build an audience of people who like those type of things, and you're going to garner engagement. I mean, I think the only, like, super technical thing about post engagement is writing copy that is engaging, that prompts people to engage with that post.
Yeah.
Right? So if I just post a pretty picture of a sunset, some people will be like, oh, that's a pretty sunset. if I post a pretty picture of a sunset and I go, what state has the prettiest sunsets? You're probably going to get a lot of people putting states in the comments, right? So you're going to build some engagement that way. Again,
and
you want to engage back with them, but
build the audience. And this is another thing too, just like I said, in my limited experience, when you do like what we talked about, you put out the content that you want to put out. And this is, again, if we're trying to build like a big audience, if you put out the content that you want to put out, then you know it will be sustainable. And then on the back of that, naturally, the people who follow you are people who want to see the kind of content that you put out.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Now, that doesn't mean over time you won't develop more of a style. Peter McKinnon's first vlog versus whenever he like really started hitting it big looked different, but it was still the content that he wanted to put out. Even though his style slowly developed over time, it developed into what he wanted to put out, and the audience built around that versus him saying, okay, what do my people want? And then just trying to fabricate something. So
I like it. Speaking of brands and particular, brands of humor, I've noticed, Chris, that you do have a particular way of interacting.
I do.
With
I've honed it in very well.
With me and specifically the Redneck Tech on Instagram, and it's trolling.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because, I like to ask y'all a lot of questions, and Chris likes to give me the answer that he knows will troll me the most. And so today, Chris says, I got this, Chris Wayne Gerlach. Right, I said it right, didn't I? Yes,
Yeah,
perfect. I was a little nervous, but I just had to roll with it. How to make my pics good. Chris, there's a lot of things.
Google.
I would say learn how to shoot your camera on manual, and then just go out and shoot.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'll do.
Only f1.8.
Best I can do is F4.
Well, your pics won't be good. I'm just kidding, folks. That was a joke. All my lenses are f4s, so yeah. This is Chris squirming uncomfortably because I'm exposing his trolling on Instagram.
I'm squirming uncomfortably because the camera in this lighting exposed how much weight I put on in the last year.
Oh yeah.
Touche.
Well, the camera adds 15 pounds, so really it's nothing.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Net zero.
Just 15?
You could put on however much you want.
It puts on whatever you've gained.
Okay.
Plus
Fair
15.
Fair enough.
Winter Productions asks, video length, and should you do one photo a post or multiple scroll?
That is a question I did have.
It's a fantastic question.
Because I would much rather go on an all dad hunt and post my 10 best photos from the all dad hunt versus post one photo a day for 10 days of the all dad hunt.
This is a good debate.
Oh God.
That's a good point. So
I don't have any opinions on this.
Instagram carousels were invented for the purpose, in my opinion, observing Instagram was invented for the purpose of you building a series of photos because it keeps people on the app longer because they want to look through them. It's like it's a whole thing. And there's also direct correlations between if you post a 10, like the best number of carousel that you can do is 10 because that's the max allowed. Mm-hmm. Because if you can post, so like if you wanted to go by what the algorithm says, if you can post 10 pictures to a carousel and people actually want to look through all 10 of them, you're more likely to show up in their feed because they have spent longer engaging with your content.
And I would much rather me as a consumer see someone post 10 photos of a buck they killed versus them post one and then a month later still holding on to that kill and post one. Yeah. And then a month later holding on to that kill and post one. And then a month later holding on to that kill. And it's been 5 months and I'm still seeing stuff that's not relative to right now.
But to that point, the other thing is with the algorithm, we know that you don't always see every post that somebody puts out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And there are some people that I follow specifically in the outdoor industry. And if you're a hunter in the outdoor industry, there's a pretty good chance you at least know who Danielle Halverson is.
Mm-hmm.
And
I follow her.
Yeah, she will milk her content and make it last a long time. And I've heard some people give her crap for it, but like she has such a loyal fan base, and they eat up everything that she puts out. And she'll do the same thing, and she'll make a piece of content. And now it may not be the exact same picture, or it may be the picture in a different context. Whereas first she just posted the picture, but later she posts like a reel or something like that, or a video where the picture is a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But she'll find a way to make that content last over time, and just repurpose it. And so, I mean, I think there are tasteful ways to do both.
Yep.
I mean, I'm all about a good 2 or 3 post teaser pic and then posting your grip and grin. I'm all about that.
I never want to hear that phrase again.
What?
Your grip and grin?
Yeah, like grip and grin photo?
It just makes me feel uncomfortable.
I know
Sorry.
what you're talking
Sorry,
about.
your trophy photo.
I don't like
But
groupie photos.
I'm not.
What about my ethically sourced harvest photo?
I guess it's just me having not anxiety, but like this aggravated disdain
Mm-hmm.
for things that I don't like.
That's fair.
There's a lot more things out there I don't like than what I do like,
Oh my gosh, really?
and I think the fact that
Guys, wait, did you hear this? I'm so surprised.
It cracks
Sorry,
me
Clay.
up. I feel like, I don't know the office dynamics, but I feel like him and Caleb would like get along really well,
yes,
because neither of you dip your toe in the water. You're either full sail one way or the other.
100%.
It's like, Caleb, have you seen this movie? I hated it. It's like,
I really hope Caleb's still on. Caleb, are you there?
it's like, you only saw the trailer. Doesn't matter. I know
Oh,
it's gonna suck.
Caleb's one of the most opinionated people I've ever met. Is he not?
And about some of the strangest things. Truly.
But
like I could ask him about peanut butter and celery, and he is going to have a very strong opinion on it.
Very much.
Caleb, if I want to hear your opinion on peanut butter and celery right now. I don't know if he's still here. He's probably not. He's probably doing something hunting-wise, but like 100% he's got an opinion on that.
yeah.
I don't even doubt it.
And if it's not the opinion, if his opinion's not your opinion, he's not like this with everybody. He just does it to mess with us. But like, if he hates peanut butter and celery, and Ryer and I love peanut butter and celery, guaranteed $300 off our paycheck next week. Like it is like unholy to disagree with him.
Well, first thing, if you get to a point where you have like if we're gonna be literal with our language, that you hate peanut butter and celery, like if you just have a hatred and disdain for peanut butter and celery, we need to have a conversation.
I don't like celery, so.
Well, you don't like it, but you don't hate it. You don't despise God's creation of it. I don't know, do you?
He might. He might.
Okay, is there any other questions?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
lots more.
Okay, let's go.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're 2 hours in.
We're going to fight Jocko for the longest podcast.
I don't think so. I'm not fighting Jocko for anything. That's the facts.
Hypothetical fight. Metaphorical fight.
No contest. Video length, I think, was another part of that. Again,
Context.
you know, it's all about what kind of video. And probably on Instagram, you should be doing it all. You should probably do 60-second videos. You should be doing the reels, which are 15 to 30. And then, you know, they want to see you doing Instagram TV stuff. So,
and then there are going to be people who want to see the long form, drawn out version of it.
Oh, God. We're just going to continue on. Jake Ansel, I really hope I pronounced that right. That's another one that I'm not sure how to pronounce. Any tips on keeping Instagram photos as sharp as you shot them? Mine fall apart.
Nope.
Don't over clarity.
Yeah.
Don't use over clarity.
Well,
Well, because it compresses it.
There
So,
goes my editing style. I use a lot of clarity.
So do I. I think all of us in this office use a lot of clarity, and I don't. It's crazy that we all use.
Well, so
But
that's
you can still tell the difference between all of our photos.
Both
thing, though.
you and Caleb like a lot of contrast. I don't.
That's an outdoor industry thing, though, I feel. Because I was talking to my friend Spencer, and he was looking through, when we came to the class, and he was looking through a bunch of different outdoors accounts, and he's like, does everybody just max the clarity fader? And I'm like,
Yeah,
You know
because
what?
you
You got
look
a
at like portrait photography or wedding photography or real estate. A lot of it's very soft.
yeah.
See, and I hate it.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a place for it.
Sure. The thing is,
Listen, if
In
you
the
got
in the
totally-
garbage is the place
if
for
you
it.
got if
But
you got like this gnarly dude with like blood all over him and like cutting up a deer, then like, yeah, max out that clarity fader because it makes him look grungy as heck.
Yeah, I'm all about
like,
the grunge. Like
yeah.
that's my.
Yeah.
I'm sure anybody could tell me my photo style, whatever. But like to that point, there's a. You're right there, buddy. No, stop.
Almost fell out of my chair.
Oh my gosh, I'm just that funny, folks. Like I see pictures that are soft, or like not soft, but they're just more subtle. I, for the life of me, cannot make one of my photos like that and like it. I love photos like that. I will 100% look at somebody's photo that's like that and be like, wow, that's a freaking super awesome photo. And I can't bring myself to edit any of my photos like that.
I make mine way too warm. Every single one of my photos.
I hate a
is way
cold
too warm.
photo.
Same. If it has any blue in it, I'm like, it's trash.
See, I love blue.
One reason we can't make our images quote soft is because we're taking photos.
It's warm.
Really
We're taking photos in video picture profiles.
I'm not.
Oh.
What are you talking about? I take my photos in RAW.
But it should
Yes,
go in raw, right?
Yes, but you still have a pic. I know at least on my Sony, there's still a picture profile on it.
I have it neutral.
Oh, well,
Huh.
never mind then. Don't listen to me.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because my Sony, if I'm filming in picture profile 5, my photos are in picture profile 5. If I'm
But
filming,
that doesn't translate
if
over,
I'm
does it?
in
I didn't
the
think so.
in the Sony, I know for a fact like all the photos I took when we were with Greg were in S-Log because I was filming in S-Log. Because not because you're stuck that way, because that's how the Sony defaults. You can go in and change it to your picture.
Like when you shoot it in 16:9.
I shoot all my photos in 16:9. That way, I don't have to reframe time lapses. So none of my photos are in 3x4 or
Oh,
4x3.
But when you load them into Lightroom,
Excuse me, sir.
When you load them into
I'm
Lightroom,
very
though,
offended by what you just said just then.
like what he was. But when you load it into Lightroom, you can change it back to 3. It still saves the 3x4 image, but
Yeah, no, I know.
I've never done that.
It
All
just
my
seem-
photos are always 16.
It just seems like I would, like the time lapses.
What was the question?
How do I make my photos not look bad on Instagram?
less
basically?
clarity.
Oh.
He says less clarity. I would say they're just going to. If you really want to dive into like the very technical details, there's definitely some like YouTube videos on people's export settings, and
Yeah.
there are some little tweaks you can do. We're not going to go into those. I would just like YouTube it, say like export settings for Instagram 2021 or something, and you'll get 45,000 videos. But at the end of the day, Instagram is going to crush your stuff. It's just
Yeah, it's
what it
going to
does.
compress the crap out. Now, I've heard people say that it's better to compress it yourself
Yeah.
and
Yes.
export it super compressed and make sure you like the way it looks.
Mm-hmm.
That way, it's not leaving it just up to Instagram to compress it.
It's
Yeah.
too much work.
But
Next.
I don't know.
Rob Kenny _photo wants to talk about shadow bans.
Shadow ban.
I don't know if I know a lot about shadow bans. I know I hear they happen.
I don't know what that is.
Sometimes
It's where they like take you out of people's feeds, so you're not getting.
Oh, yeah,
notifications
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff,
Okay,
but
okay.
There's no like, it's not alerting you to it.
Yeah.
I have two opinions on this. One thing, I definitely think that like, okay, so we're playing on these platforms, and I assume, Rob, that you're probably talking about hunting specifically, and
Hunting politics.
hunting politics, and I think that there is probably Instagram or Twitter or YouTube or whatever is not going to prioritize a lot of our content because they as companies politically probably don't support like a lot like
Guns,
hunting or
guns,
or
bloods,
things like
dead
that.
animals.
I get reported on a weekly basis, and my content is very mild. I don't even have a
Mhm.
kill shot on my page. I don't think, besides
I've
ducks.
never been reported.
So I also, well, to be fair, I also argue with a lot of vegans on Instagram, so that could be part of it too.
I think we found the confounding variable.
But I was
Chris
on,
and I were having a conversation about how statistics lie and how sometimes they say
gosh.
one thing, but actually it's a false flag and the cause is something completely different. I think this is one of those cases.
So
Chris is like, my content gets flagged a lot.
this is a good example. So this is why brand, in my opinion, matters, and this is why personal. This is why my personal communication with people matters, and being as in tune with your audience as possible, because if you leave it up to the algorithm, then your success will always be at the mercy of the platform that you're on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you build an audience of assuming that you're in a field where building an audience is relevant, like you're trying to be an influencer or whatever, that's why it's important to build a relationship with people, so that instead of you having to rely on showing up in their feed, they actively seek you out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people want to see John Dudley's content, so they look at John Dudley's page. Yeah, it sucks that he's getting shadow banned, but he has people, and he's going to lose some impressions over that, because there's like a bell curve of like viewership.
Mm-hmm.
But he's built brand with so many people that people are going to actively go to his page to see what Knock On Archery is doing, because the same way that they'll go to the Outdoor channel to see what's on, or the same reason they'll go to whatever, people want to see what his channel is putting out. And that's why building brand is important versus just, like, I follow a couple of pages on Instagram that are business pages, and like, if I've got a minute and I want to look at like business tips or marketing tips, I don't have to worry about it showing up in my feed, because of the value they provide and the communication between like them and their audience. I'm actively going to their page on Instagram to look at their stuff, so it doesn't matter if Instagram shadow bans them or not.
Right.
Yeah, and people follow Dudley because Dudley shows up because he's John Dudley and Knock On TV, not because he's blowing the algorithm out of the water.
That's also a good point. He probably has people actively like going to his page, and that like feeds it too.
Yeah. He doesn't need the impressions to build his Instagram, because his brand itself has built his Instagram.
That's also a good point. He didn't use Instagram to become John Dudley.
No.
So.
John Dudley got on Instagram because Instagram needed John Dudley.
And that's why I'm always hesitant whenever people who are influencers who got their influence from somewhere else tell people how to gain influence on social media, because like, and sure, there are people who like have a ton of knowledge about it, but like, whenever you've built your following based on your dad's TV show, and then you turn around and give really, really bad information about how to act on Instagram, then it tells me that like, obviously you didn't grow because of you knew how to like work the communication platform. You grew because, and that's like, I don't have any like shame or anything towards those people.
Well, I think it's important to note, like, look at some of the creators on Vine, right? So you have these people who blow up on one platform, and they're doing fantastic on that platform, and they, like, Vine just disappears, right? Vine essentially just disappeared, got wiped off the face of the earth. What happened to a lot of those creators? Now, there are some that have been able to continue their brand and be successful on other platforms. But I think far and away, a lot of those creators essentially lost what we could call a lot of their influence.
Which is the same thing, like I said, is going to happen as TV continues to go down the drain the way that it has. There's going to be opportunity for new influencers to step up.
And again, like what you had mentioned it before, we really didn't touch on it, but having the same advice that people always give to people who are investing, like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, diversify. You also want to do that across the social medias, because especially if we want to talk about shadow bans and we want to talk about, securing a foundation and having a solid audience. Hunting is the battery's flashing. We're gonna have to wrap this up soon. Hunting right now, and I do not foresee this not being the case, is controversial. On a nationwide level, whether we agree with whether it should be or not is besides the point. A lot of these platforms see it as controversial. A lot of these platforms do not want to show hunting. They would rather not, and that's where these shadow bans come in. This is where it's hard to get a following or reach people or whatever it may be. Unfortunately, that's the platform, and you can only play by their rules. But you should definitely be on all the platforms, because if Instagram wakes up tomorrow and is like, no more hunting pages on here, and your entire livelihood or your entire audience is on there, it's gone like that, and there's literally nothing you can do about it.
There was a girl that I connected with on Instagram who was an outdoors influencer, and she had somewhat of a Facebook page built up and was on TikTok kind of, but she had just a weird incident where her Instagram page got hacked and deleted. And she, like, it was every photo that she had posted, she had like 50,000 or 60,000 followers, which is a good amount for a sponsorship. And she had to restart, and like this is like 2 months ago, and she's right now at like 3,500 followers, just based off of the brand that she had and other people who she was friends with hyping it back up. But like, it really hurt her because, you know, she was relying on sponsorships on that one platform, and whenever that happened, she lost all of her impressions. And luckily the brands that she was working with were like gracious to her and continued that relationship. But at the end of the day, like, it went from her having a lot of value for them to all of a sudden, like, she just, I mean, you know, all of a sudden the value just wasn't there. And like those brands, like, they have to make money too, and it has to be worth their investment. But at the end of the day, like, once those views all disappeared and those constant impressions disappeared, she was immediately worth a fraction of what she was worth before. And that's not like because of like emotional reasons or whatever. It's just like statistically, she's not worth the dollar amount, and it sucks. But like, whenever you function on one platform, and that's where all of your eggs are on, that's the basket that all of your eggs are in, then like, you run the risk of that. But
Just like viral videos can literally blow up overnight, you all of your influence, quote unquote, can also just disappear overnight. So build brand so that people consciously seek you out instead of having to rely on the algorithm to put you in front of them. That's the short answer to that question, in my opinion. Yep.
If I have to say that every time.
Moxie_Don also says, Instagram censoring hunting, and how do we combat it? Hunters are people too.
Don't rely on the algorithm to put you in front of people. Make connections.
And again, can we be outspoken about disagreeing with Instagram's policies, or try to be outspoken and make people aware of that Instagram is doing this and try to push Instagram to change their policies? 100%. And I think that, you know, if Instagram is a platform that you want to be on and you are a hunter, you know, you kind of have to do that to an extent. You can do that through, obviously, just posting the content that you feel like you should be posting, being outspoken about these things, building an audience, showing Instagram that there is value in this audience, I think is kind of a fuzzy way to do things. Like, if you show Instagram, hey, we're keeping people on your platform, they're going to be much less likely to just kick all of hunting off than if there's no engagement or no value for Instagram to have hunters here, right? So I think that's kind of something you can do. But again, at the end of the day, Instagram is Instagram's, right? They have the final say. And the best you can do is just advocate for hunters and the hunting lifestyle the best that you can. And if Instagram still decides that they're going to shadow ban, or they're going to not allow hunting, or any other social media for that matter, you really can't do a lot about it.
You can build a website and put your content on that website and refer people back to that website that you're producing content on, so that if every other social media platform decides they want to ban hunting, you still have your platform, so to speak, to put content out on. But other than that, you know, you're really at the mercy of the platform.
Last question, _rodeo_dad. What is the best way to load gold content to Insta/Facebook? How to get more followers? Again, you're probably going to say what I'm going to say, but gold content is super subjective. You know, make stuff that you think is cool. Do your best making the coolest content that you can make, and be true to yourself and your brand, and constantly be pushing yourself to create better content. And like you said before, good content is all relevant to your audience as well. So, and again, your audience is relevant to your goals. So starting with, hey, what is my goal here? Then what does the audience look like that will help me achieve that goal? And then going, okay, what kind of audience metrics do I need to have in order to do whatever it is I'm trying to do here? and then making content that is both authentic and that you're proud of, that also that is bringing value to that audience that you've set up.
That's pretty good.
Did you have anything to add to that?
Maybe.
Okay.
I've kind of been going into these questions with the assumptions that they were people who were trying to like build something from scratch. So in the chance that you or anybody else who asks these questions are a bigger production or somebody who has dollars to put towards market research or market study, a great you said the word gold, like gold content, so that just, I don't know, makes me think like something. So something that we've had success with on a small scale in the past, and that I know bigger brands are doing, is testing out organic content by first running paid promotion, because you can get a 15-second video view for literally 2 cents. Like literally costs 2 cents for me to force you to watch a 15-second video in your Facebook feed.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, if you're not sure what type of content that people are going to like, or not sure like whether you should go with like one style or another, for 2 cents spread over hundreds of people, you can get a really good idea of what people are engaging with. And then if you don't want to go like the 15-second forced route, then you can like just run longer ads that people can or can't click out of. And then you can actually run paid promotion on these, not as a post, but as an ad on the back end of the ad manager. And then you can like run 3 different types of content and be like, okay, well, on these first 2, people are dropping off like almost immediately. But on this other one, like on this other type of content, they're actually retaining for a long time. So there's a pretty good chance people enjoy this type of content and then make more content like that. That's worked for furniture stores. That has worked for firearms, people in the firearms world. That has worked for, which is trickier because you can't actually put firearms in ads on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's worked across industries because basically what you're doing is amplifying it to see what people like and then making more of what people like. So that's also another way to make gold content.
Just basically
if you have some dollars.
ABC testing.
Exactly.
Making like legitimately just testing scientifically, gathering statistics and analyzing them.
Yep.
It's not a sexy way to do it. It's not probably the funnest way to do it, but it is going to be the most accurate way to do it, and it's going to be the best way to like definitively say and know, hey, my audience likes this thing, or this content is getting me the metrics or the engagement or this, that, or the other that I've decided I'm going to measure because it's relative to my goals. So, again, make a goal, and everything else needs to relate to that goal.
Yeah,
needs to push you forward to that goal. So,
Oh, nothing. Are we about to? I've got a phone call to make.
Yeah. Our battery is flashing, and I think that we have covered this very thoroughly. I hope that you guys got something useful out of it. Where can people find you, Chris?
Instagram, at Chris Wayne Gerlach. Facebook, at Chris Wayne Gerlach. Twitter, at Chris Wayne Gerlach.
Wait, can I guess?
Internet.
Guess another one?
The internet. What's my website?
ChrisWayneGerlach.com.
Nailed it.
Yes!
Nailed it. And basically any other platform that exists that I may or may not be on, if I'm on it, it's at Chris Wayne Gerlach.
Another solid tip. Make all of your usernames the same, folks.
I wonder if I did it on purpose or not.
I think you did. Something in me tells me that you did.
Branding.
You can find us at Redneck Tech Podcast. Same, pretty much everywhere. If you're listening to this and want to watch it, it's on YouTube. If you're on YouTube and you want to listen to it, we are on all of your favorite podcast applications. And as always, we want to hear from you. Hit us up, ask us questions, and we will be back next time. See y'all later.
Boom.
Hold on.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. All right, everybody on YouTube, thanks again for watching on the live stream. This was a long one, and I seen that there's been a few of you that have been sticking around, so hopefully it was something useful for you, and we appreciate you all being on here and interacting. It makes these live streams really fun to be able to kind of see what everybody's thinking and talk back and forth with y'all. So with that, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten. I've had 3 eggs and half a bag of Mike and Ike's today, and like my usual amount of coffee, which is more than a person should probably have. So I'm gonna go eat. We will catch y'all on the flip side. It's a
Peace.
Terrible sign off.
This will probably be the last podcast that I do with you guys for a while.
Thank God.
This is so sad.
It's awful, right?
It was fun.
All right, see y'all.
Peace.